The corpse bell rings twice when it should ring once. Every apprentice inside the Blackmere Academy catacombs freezes. Marek Voss is the only one stupid enough to still have his hand inside the summoning circle, which, considering his reputation, feels painfully on brand. See, Blackmere does not train the glamorous kind of mages. Firecasters practice above ground where sunlight reaches the courtyards. Sword adepts get marble halls, cheering spectators, and entire balconies reserved for noble families. Necromancers get the basement. More specifically, they get 6 underground floors carved around an ancient burial hill, where the walls sweat cold mineral water and every doorway has a bronze corpse bell hanging above it. The bells are supposed to ring once when a spirit answers. Twice means something answered that was never invited. Marek slowly pulls his fingers away from the chalk circle. Nothing appears. That somehow makes everything worse. Around him, 12 other students stare from behind their own preparation tables. At the center of each station sits a bone fragment, a dish of quiet ash, and a strip of funerary cloth marked with the Academy seal. The assignment is embarrassingly basic. Call a minor shade, hold it for 10 breaths. Dismiss it cleanly. Even first-year mortuary assistants can manage that much. Marek has failed the exercise 4 times already. His mana pool is tiny, his control is inconsistent, and his affinity for death magic is so weak that instructor Hellman once describes it as technically measurable, which is the kindest thing available to say. Yeah, brutal. Across the chamber, Ronan Dare already has a pale soldier kneeling inside his circle. The summoned shade wears the ghostly outline of an old breastplate and holds a spear made from condensed mist. Ronan comes from a family of military spirit binders. Naturally, even his practice ghost looks employed. Marek gets smoke. Again, at least, that is what everyone thinks. Instructor Hellman walks toward the failed circle with his hands folded behind his back. The old professor studies the ash, then the bell, then Marek. Dismiss whatever was called. Marek touches 2 fingers to the termination rune. The ash does not move. He presses harder. Still nothing. A few students start whispering. Ronan smiles. Not loudly. That would require effort. His expression alone does the job. Marek redraws the dismissal symbol. The chalk immediately cracks. A voice speaks beside his ear. Pathetic. Marek jerks so hard that his elbow slams into the table. The bone fragment rolls across the floor. Nobody reacts to the voice. That is bad. Very bad. The voice comes again. 5 centuries of magical development, and this is what passes for a summoning posture? Marek turns his head. A translucent man stands directly behind him. Only the upper half is visible. Everything below the waist dissolves into drifting silver vapor. The spirit is enormous. Broad shoulders sit beneath battered plate armor unlike anything used by modern soldiers. A broken cloak hangs from one shoulder. His hair is tied behind his head with a leather cord, and a deep scar crosses one ghostly cheek. Most unsettling of all, the dead man looks annoyed, not confused, not tormented. Annoyed, like death itself has interrupted an appointment. Marek stares. The spirit stares back. Then the ancient warrior looks down at Marek's stance. His expression somehow gets worse. Shoulders too high, Marek says nothing. Breathing is shallow. Still nothing. Grip strength is embarrassing. Marek finally whispers, "What are you?" The spirit's eyes narrow. "What sort of question is that?" Instructor Hellman leans closer. "Voss?" Marek snaps his attention forward. Hellman sees no towering warrior. Neither does anyone else. Great. Now the weakest necromancer in the year is apparently hallucinating in front of the entire practical class. Ronan folds his arms. Maybe the shade is too frightened to appear. Several students laugh. The ancient spirit turns toward Ronan. A pause. Then a disgusted look. That one would have lasted half a morning in the western trenches. Marek bites the inside of his cheek. Hellman taps the cracked circle with the end of his cane. No manifestation, no stable tether, no successful dismissal. He marks something on the evaluation slate. Failure. The word lands harder than Marek expects. Not because it is surprising, failure is familiar territory, but because the translucent warrior suddenly leans over his shoulder and reads the slate. A failure? The spirit looks personally offended. Based on this, Marek keeps his eyes forward. Hellman moves to the next student. The class resumes. Marek begins gathering his materials. Behind him, the dead man remains. That is the first real problem. The second arrives when Marek quietly scrapes away the summoning circle. Normally, destroying the anchor collapses any remaining connection. The warrior does not even flicker. Marek folds the funerary cloth. Still there, he scatters the quiet ash into the disposal vessel. Nothing. He snaps the original bone fragment in half. The spirit looks down at it. Cheap cattle bone. Marek goes completely still. The Academy supply label says the fragment comes from a battlefield grave. Apparently not. Interesting. The spirit notices his reaction. At least the eyes work. Marek packs faster. Students leave the chamber in groups. Ronan passes close enough to brush Marek's shoulder. Another perfect score. Marek ignores him. The dead warrior does not. His spectral hand moves. For one terrifying instant, Marek expects him to punch Ronan through a wall. Instead, the ghost reaches toward the noble student's shoulder. His fingers pass straight through. Nothing happens. The warrior clicks his tongue. Insubstantial. There is genuine irritation in that word. Marek walks faster. He climbs from the catacombs into the academy's lower cloister, where narrow windows throw strips of afternoon light across black stone floors. The spirit follows without moving his feet. He simply drifts. Students pass through him without noticing. Every time that happens, his expression becomes more murderous. Blackmere rises around the burial hill in layers. The lower halls belong to mortuary disciplines. Above them sit the combat schools. Above those, the noble residences. Even the architecture knows who matters. Marek heads toward an unused stairwell. The ghost stays beside him. Marek turns left. So does the ghost. He doubles back. The spirit remains exactly 3 steps behind. He enters a storage alcove. The warrior drifts through the closed door. Marek presses his back against a shelf full of embalming salt. Leave. The ancient man folds his arms. No. Marek waits. That cannot possibly be the answer. Dismissal. No. Marek pulls a warding slip from his pocket. The spirit glances at it. Then at him. That little paper? Marek activates the seal. Pale blue fire runs across the ink. The ward is designed to repel lingering dead. The warrior reaches forward. His finger touches the blue flame. The entire slip goes dark. He looks almost insulted. Children's magic. Marek grabs another. The spirit sighs. Same handwriting, same mistake. The second ward dies too. Marek tries a severance phrase. Nothing. A binding reversal. Nothing. A funerary command. The ghost yawns. By the 6th attempt, irritation finally beats fear. Why are you still here? The warrior studies him. Because that summoning drags something loose. His hand presses against the center of his own spectral chest. For the first time, the irritation fades slightly. Not much, just enough. Something old. Marek looks at the ghostly armor. Several symbols are carved into the breastplate. Most mean nothing. One does. A sun split by a vertical sword. Marek has seen that emblem before. Every student in the kingdom has. It appears on military banners during Founding Day. It is stamped beneath statues in the capital. It decorates the first page of every basic history primer. Marek's mouth goes dry. The spirit notices. What? Marek points. The warrior looks down at the emblem, then back up. Marek whispers the name. Tiber Ren. Silence. The ghost's expression changes. Not to pride, to confusion. That reaction is somehow worse. Marek knows the stories. Everyone does. Tiber Ren, the Ash Champion. Commander of the last united army during the War of 9 Crowns. The warrior who supposedly kills the Hollow King at Dawn Pass. The man historians credit with ending an entire age of continental warfare. His body is never recovered. His tomb in the capital contains an empty sarcophagus. And according to official records, he died more than 600 years ago. The spirit scratches his scar. Still remembered? Marek just stares. Tiber looks mildly satisfied. Then he glances around the cramped storage alcove. His satisfaction vanishes. Remembered by people who teach that stance? There it is. Marek almost laughs. Almost. Instead, something colder settles into place. Because none of this makes sense. The practice ritual is designed to reach weak nearby shades. It cannot cross centuries. It cannot locate specific souls. And it absolutely cannot pull history's greatest champion into a first-year academy exercise using fake battlefield bone. Marek looks down at his hands. Quiet ash still stains his fingertips. Something else sits beneath his thumbnail. A dark metallic dust, not chalk, not ash. He rubs it between 2 fingers. Tiber leans closer. For the first time since appearing, the old champion says nothing. Marek returns to the classroom after sunset. The catacomb chamber is empty now. Corpse bells hang motionless above every station. Moonlight does not reach this deep. Only blue funerary lamps burn along the walls. Marek finds his original circle. The attendants have already scrubbed most of it away. He kneels. There, beneath the chalk, a symbol has been carved directly into the black stone, tiny, old, almost invisible, a circle surrounding 7 downward lines. Marek has never seen it in any academy manual. Tiber has. That much is obvious. The champion's face turns completely still. What does it mean? No answer. Marek looks up. Tiber is staring at the mark as though it belongs to a memory he would rather keep buried. Then the old warrior's expression hardens. Scrub it away. Marek does not. Interesting. The man who insults everything suddenly wants silence. Marek traces the edge of the mark with one finger. The groove is older than the chalk circle, much older. Someone carved it into the summoning chamber before today's examination, possibly before Marek was born. Tiber reaches down. His transparent hand stops just above Marek's wrist. Boy. That is the first time his voice carries real warning. Marek looks at him. The champion's spectral outline flickers. For half a second, something appears behind Tiber. Not a person. Not exactly. A battlefield. Black towers. Burning banners. Thousands of shapes beneath a red sky. Then it disappears. Tiber recoils like the vision physically strikes him. His lower body dissolves further. Marek rises immediately. The old spirit steadies himself. So much for an unstoppable legend. Whatever came through the circle is incomplete. Fragments. Memories. Maybe even pieces of power that have not settled yet. The champion notices Marek studying him. Stop that. Marek raises an eyebrow. Stop looking as though an autopsy is being planned. That is exactly what Marek is doing. Tiber grimaces. Necromancers. There is enough contempt in that single word to start a religious war. Marek looks back at the carved symbol. Then at the dead champion, who should not exist. Weak mana or not, something impossible has just attached itself to him. And impossible things attract attention. In Blackmere, attention is dangerous. Ronin wants rankings. Professors want results. Noble houses want useful talent. The Academy Council wants anything unusual catalogued, controlled, or locked away. If anyone learns that Marek accidentally summoned Tiber Wren, the situation stops belonging to Marek immediately. Tiber seems to reach the same conclusion from a different direction. This place has training yards? Marek nods slowly. Real ones. Another nod. Weapons? Yes. Armor? Yes. The champion looks him up and down. His face twists. Then there is no excuse. Marek frowns. Tiber points at his chest. Posture. Then his legs. Footwork. Then his hands. Mana control. Then with absolutely unnecessary cruelty, his entire body. Everything else. Marek stares at history's greatest champion. Tiber stares back. Tomorrow begins before sunrise. Marek turns toward the exit. Absolutely not. The ghost follows. Before sunrise, Marek keeps walking. Still no. Then midnight. Marek stops. Tiber almost smiles. The expression looks terrifying on him. Better. Marek realizes the mistake immediately. The old champion has just negotiated an earlier training session by making the first option sound reasonable. 600 years dead. Still manipulative. Fantastic. Marek reaches the sealed door at the end of the lower corridor. A rusted plaque reads Old Combat Ossuary closed by order of the Academy Council. Nobody uses it anymore. Modern necromancers train through controlled spirit commands. Tiber apparently considers modern training an insult to civilization. Marek removes a thin bone pick from his sleeve. The lock clicks. The dead champion looks almost approving. Almost. Marek pushes the forbidden door open. Cold air rolls out. Inside waits a circular chamber filled with cracked weapon racks, burial mannequins, and ancient ward stones. Tiber drifts past him. For the first time since being summoned, the champion looks comfortable. Marek closes the door behind them. Then he sets his academy robe on the floor. No speech, no vow, no grand declaration. He simply rolls up his sleeves. Tiber points toward a rusted practice sword. Pick it up, Marek does. The sword nearly pulls his shoulder down. The ghost's face darkens. History truly has collapsed. Marek adjusts his grip. Tiber circles him like an executioner inspecting equipment. Again, and beneath the old ossuary floor, far below both of them, the 7-line symbol carved into Blackmere's foundation gives off one faint pulse of silver light. Neither of them sees it, not yet. Midnight turns out to be an extremely bad time to discover that a dead man can still throw things. Not physically, of course. Tiber Wren cannot touch a practice sword. He cannot lift a chair. He cannot even kick Marek's ankle into the correct position. What he can do is scream instructions with the enthusiasm of an artillery commander watching a city burn. Lower. Marek lowers the sword. Too low. He raises it. Now the elbow is wrong. Marek corrects his elbow. Other elbow. There are only two. And somehow both disappoint me. Marek closes his eyes. This is going to be a very long night. The abandoned combat ossuary smells like rust, old stone, and embalming resin that dried before Marek's grandparents were born. 6 cracked training mannequins stand around the circular floor. Their wooden torsos are reinforced with old necromantic iron. Several weapon racks lean against the walls. Most of the blades have rusted into decorative tetanus. Tiber examines everything like a king inspecting the ruins of a conquered province. Apparently, none of it meets standards. The sword is too light. The floor is too flat. The ceiling is too low. The Academy's breathing techniques are a crime committed against lungs. Marek lasts 18 minutes before snapping. You do understand that I am a necromancer. Tiber looks at him. Yes. Necromancers summon things. I noticed. They do not fight with swords. The dead champion stares for 3 full seconds. Then he points toward the blade in Marek's hand. And yet someone gave you arms. Marek lowers the weapon. Tiber's expression hardens. Again. Our young necromancer almost leaves. Almost. Then he remembers Ronan's soldier shade, kneeling perfectly inside a stable circle. He remembers instructor Helmand writing failure without hesitation. He remembers how little mana answers when Marek reaches for it. So the sword comes back up. Tiber watches. Better. Marek pauses. The champion scowls. Do not make me repeat compliments. They weaken discipline. Of course. Marek swings. The blade cuts through empty air. Terrible. There it is. Balance restored. For the next hour, Tiber does not teach swordsmanship. Not really. He teaches feet, where weight sits, how the heel lands, when the hip turns, how a fighter wastes energy before an attack even begins. Marek initially assumes the lesson has nothing to do with necromancy. Then Tiber asks him to summon something. Marek nearly laughs. His mana is already half gone. Still, he takes a finger bone from his component pouch and places it on the floor. A tiny circle follows. 3 anchor marks, 1 thread rune, 1 command seal, basic corpse animation, nothing impressive. Marek feeds mana into the pattern. The bone twitches. A skeletal rat claws its way out of the loose ossuary soil beside the circle. Its skull is cracked. Half the tail is missing. 1 foreleg drags. Tiber's face falls. What is that? A summon. That is debris. The skeletal rat turns toward the champion. It cannot see him. Probably fortunate. Marek flicks 2 fingers. The creature scurries forward. 3 steps. Then its bad foreleg catches. The rat tumbles sideways. Tiber looks at Marek. Marek looks at the rat. Neither speaks. Tiber finally points. Make it stand correctly. It is dead. So am I. Annoyingly difficult argument to beat. Marek adjusts the command thread. The skeletal rat rises. Tiber moves around it. Left shoulder collapses. Marek frowns. It doesn't have muscles. Then stop thinking about muscles. That catches him. Tiber points at the spine. Weight. Then the hips. Balance. Then the damaged foreleg. Compensation. Marek slowly lowers himself beside the summon. Necromancy classes teach command efficiency. Move. Stop. Attack. Return. The corpse performs whatever instruction receives the strongest mana priority. Nobody teaches stance. Why would they? A dead soldier does not feel pain. A skeleton does not tire. If one falls, the necromancer raises another. Quantity solves what technique does not. At least, that is modern doctrine. Tiber clearly hates modern doctrine. Marek rewrites the leg command. Not stronger, smarter. The rat puts less weight on the damaged side. Its spine tilts. The rear limbs shift half an inch. Then it walks. No stumble. Marek stops breathing for a second. Tiber does not. Again. Marek sends it around the room. The rat moves faster. Its damaged foreleg still drags, but the rest of the frame compensates. Less mana bleeds through the command. Marek feels that immediately. He checks the tether. Same summon. Same body, nearly 1/3 less continuous drain. Interesting. Very interesting. Tiber notices his expression. There. The champion folds his arms. The look of a man discovering that ignorance is expensive. Marek ignores the insult. He makes the rat turn, then accelerate, then climb a broken mannequin. Its movement remains ugly, but now the ugliness is efficient. That matters. Marek has always assumed his greatest weakness is the size of his mana pool. What if the real problem is how much mana his summons waste? Most necromancers overwhelm corpses with magical instructions. Every motion is forced. Every adjustment costs more energy. Marek cannot afford that. But a warrior like Tiber sees movement differently, not as commands, as mechanics. Marek looks at the skeletal rat, then at the champion. Tiber raises one eyebrow. Our necromancer smiles. The old spirit immediately looks suspicious. I dislike that expression. Marek summons a second rat, then a third. By sunrise, he has 5. Normally, 5 animated constructs would empty his reserves in minutes. These keep moving, not quickly, not powerfully, but efficiently. Tiber paces between them, correcting posture like the world's angriest animal trainer. Rear one is overextending. Marek adjusts it. Second creature turns too wide. Another adjustment. The small one is useless. They are all the same size. That one looks weaker. It does, somehow. Marek changes the distribution through its hind legs. The skeletal rat stops wobbling. Tiber nods once. Marek notices something else. The champion's outline is clearer, only slightly. Yesterday, everything below Tiber's waist dissolved into fog. Now the shape of one knee occasionally appears. A boot flickers when he gets angry enough, which happens often. The change cannot be random. Marek's original summoning tether should be collapsing over time. Instead, Tiber is stabilizing. That means something is feeding the connection. Marek checks his own mana. No unusual drain. The 5 rats consume less than expected. The spirit costs almost nothing. Nothing about that feels safe. Tiber catches him staring again. Autopsy face. Marek turns away. Training ends when footsteps pass outside the sealed corridor. Students are beginning morning exercises upstairs. Marek dismisses 4 rats. The 5th remains. He hesitates. This one has the cracked skull and missing tail, the original. Its movement is now the cleanest. Tiber points at it. Keep that one. Marek glances over. Why? It learns faster. It is bones. Tiber looks offended. So are most generals. Marek slips the skeletal rat into the inner pocket of his robe. It folds itself surprisingly neatly. Apparently, that is another movement pattern Tiber considers essential. By the time Marek reaches breakfast, the academy is fully awake. Blackmere students fill the lower dining hall. Mortuary apprentices sit closest to the kitchens because nobody else wants to share tables with people carrying preserved organs before noon. Marek takes his usual seat near a pillar. Tiber appears through the wall beside him. Nobody reacts. The champion studies breakfast, boiled grain, salt fish, black bread. He looks horrified. This kingdom won wars? Several. How? Marek eats. Tiber circles the table. Where is the meat? Marek continues eating. Eggs? Nothing. Fermented cabbage? Marek looks up. That is oddly specific. Campaign food. You campaigned with cabbage? We had standards. A girl from the next table glances toward Marek. He realizes he has answered aloud. Fantastic. Marek immediately looks down at his bowl. Tiber notices, then smiles. That is new. And deeply unwelcome. You are the only one who hears me. Apparently. Excellent. Marek's spoon stops. Why is that excellent? The dead champion leans closer. Because now training can continue everywhere. Marek nearly drops breakfast. Tiber spends the next class criticizing posture. Not Marek's. Everyone's. Professor Isabel lectures on spirit chain geometry while Tiber stands behind her podium. Too narrow. Marek keeps writing. That chain pattern. He ignores him. Any hostile spirit with a rotational anchor would tear through it. Marek writes faster. Tiber moves to another student's desk. That boy grips the stylus like a dagger. Silence. Poorly. Marek's jaw tightens. Professor Isabel turns. Voss. He looks up. Is there something amusing? No, Professor. Tiber leans beside her. Her left shoulder is injured. Marek blinks. He had not noticed. Then Professor Isabel reaches for the upper blackboard and winces almost invisibly. Tiber is right, again. Marek starts paying closer attention. Not to the lecture, to Tiber. The champion sees details differently. Tiny shifts in balance, breathing changes, hand tension, habitual movement. A swordsman might use those signs to predict an attack. A necromancer can use them for something else. Marek looks at Professor Isabel's demonstration shade. The spirit is bound into a training corpse standing beside the board. Its movements are stiff. The right foot drags. Not because the corpse is damaged, because the command pattern pulls from the upper spine first. Marek copies the diagram, then quietly modifies it in the margin. Shift locomotion priority downward. Reduce shoulder reinforcement. Use the hip joint as rotational center. Tiber glances over. For once, no insult arrives. At the end of class, Professor Isabel assigns a simple control exercise. Animate a prepared hand. Make it cross a desk. Turn a page. Return. Students begin. Marek waits. He can feel Tiber watching. Do it badly, the champion says. Marek glances sideways. That is definitely new. Tiber looks toward the room. You are weak. Marek's face remains blank. Tiber continues. They know you are weak. Yes. They expect you to be weak. Also, yes, the champion's mouth curls. Expectations are fortifications built by the enemy. Marek understands immediately. So he uses the academy method. Too much mana. Stiff commands. Clumsy movement. The preserved hand crawls halfway across the table. One finger slips. It smacks into an ink bottle. Ronan laughs from 2 rows away. Professor Isabel does not even look surprised. Marek lets the hand struggle, then dismisses it. Tiber's eyes gleam, not because Marek fails, because the failure is intentional. That changes something between them. For the first time, the old champion is not simply correcting a useless student. He is participating in a plan. Marek waits until evening, then returns to the ossuary. Today he brings better materials. A crow skeleton from the academy refuse pit, 2 rat frames, 1 discarded canine paw, a cracked practice skull used for anatomy lessons. Tiber looks at the pile. An army? Research. Worse. Marek begins. The first experiment is movement efficiency, the second is response speed. The third is something neither of them expects. Marek animates the crow. Tiber instructs him to adjust the wing joints. The skeleton cannot truly fly. Too little surface area, no feathers, no muscle. But necromancy provides force where biology cannot. Marek normally commands every wing beat directly. That burns mana brutally fast. Tiber watches 3 attempts, then says, "Stop controlling the wings." Marek frowns. It falls. "Control the body." The champion points to the chest. "Let the wings follow." That sounds ridiculous. Marek tries anyway. Instead of commanding each joint, he places one central movement instruction into the crow's torso and lets smaller bone linkages respond mechanically. The skeleton launches. It crosses half the room, crashes into a wall, falls apart. Tiber nods. Better. Marek stares at the scattered bones. The flight consumed less mana than keeping a rat walking. His pulse quickens. He rebuilds the crow. Second attempt. Crash. Third. Longer. Fourth. The skeleton circles once before slamming into a weapon rack. Fifth. It lands. Ugly. But intact. Marek checks his reserves. Still above half. Impossible by standard calculations. A quiet sensation stirs behind his eyes, not a system window. Blackmere does not use one. This is subtler. The tether between Marek and Tiber tightens. For one breath, the champion's presence overlaps his senses. The room changes. Marek suddenly sees the crow's posture not as bones, but as lines of force, weight distribution, rotational angles, points of failure. Tiber turns sharply. "You felt that." Marek does not answer. The sensation vanishes. A headache replaces it. Tiber's expression is no longer annoyed. Now he looks alert. Marek touches his temple. "What was that?" The champion looks at his own translucent hand. "I do not know." That answer matters. Tiber knows old battlefield magic, old necromancy, old war rituals. If even he does not recognize the connection, then whatever binds them may be stranger than either assumes. Marek looks toward the crow. He tries to recall the sensation. Nothing. Tiber steps beside him. Again. Marek raises an eyebrow. "You just said you don't know what happened." "Correct. And your solution is to repeat it." That is how discovery worked before scholars became cowards. Marek hates that this almost makes sense. They train until the funerary lamps dim. The strange overlap does not return, but something else does. Tiber's right hand becomes completely solid-looking for nearly 4 seconds. Not physically solid. Marek tests that immediately by pushing a wooden rod through it. Tiber looks furious. "Do that again and I will find a method to haunt your descendants." Useful data. Necromancers. The insult has become less hostile. Barely. Close to dawn, Marek dismisses the crow. The original skeletal rat remains beside his boot. Its movements have changed even further. Now it anticipates direction changes before Marek completes the command. Not thoughts. Not exactly. More like the command chain has become refined enough that smaller signals produce larger responses. Marek crouches. The rat looks up with empty sockets. Tiber examines it. Still ugly. Marek waits. The champion sighs. Useful, though. The rat's skull tilts. Marek smiles slightly. Companion may be too generous a word. It is still a handful of bones. But compared to the stumbling thing from last night, this little construct moves like an entirely different creature. Marek taps the floor twice. The rat darts up his sleeve and settles inside his robe. No wasted motion. No command repetition. Almost no mana drain. That is improvement. Real improvement. And Marek has only begun understanding why. He packs away the crow bones. Tiber floats toward the sealed door, then stops. His gaze shifts toward the floor. The ancient champion becomes silent. Marek notices immediately. Again, that silence. Whenever the 7-line symbol comes close, Tiber changes. Marek follows his gaze. One of the old ward stones near the eastern wall has cracked during training. Behind it sits a narrow cavity. Something metallic glints inside. Marek kneels. He reaches in. Tiber's voice turns sharp. "Do not touch it. Too late." Marek pulls out a thin bronze plate. Dust coats the surface. Most of the inscription has corroded away. One mark survives. A circle. 7 lines descending through it. The same symbol beneath yesterday's summoning circle. Only this one includes text. Marek wipes away the dirt. The script is archaic. He recognizes almost none of it. Tiber does. The old champion's entire outline flickers violently. His newly formed hand disappears. The lower half of his body dissolves back into mist. Marek turns. Tiber is staring at the bronze plate. Not angry, not irritated. Afraid would be too strong, but not by much. What does it say? The champion says nothing. Marek waits. Tiber's jaw tightens. Finally, he reads only 4 surviving words. Those who remain behind. Marek looks back at the plate. What does that mean? Tiber's face closes. Nothing useful. A terrible lie. Marek does not challenge him. Not yet. Instead, he wraps the bronze plate in cloth, slides it into his bag, and deliberately says nothing more. Tiber watches him. The old champion knows exactly what that silence means. Marek intends to investigate. Good. Let him know. By the time morning bells begin above ground, Marek has 3 new facts. His mana problem can be reduced through physically efficient summons. His bond with Tiber can briefly transmit something deeper than words. And the Academy is built over a symbol that history's greatest champion desperately does not want explained. Our necromancer walks out of the forbidden ossuary with the skeletal rat hidden inside his sleeve. His shoulders remain slightly slouched, his steps remain deliberately awkward. By the time he reaches the public corridor, he once again looks exactly like Blackmere's mediocre failure. Tiber drifts beside him. The champion studies the act, then gives one approving nod. Better. Marek keeps walking. That might be the first compliment he actually believes. The first real problem arrives 3 days later, wearing Academy armor and carrying a blunted spear. His name is Marek Voss. Second-year combat necromancer, top 12 in Blackmere's lower division. And judging from the way he looks at Marek, apparently someone has decided that failing quietly is no longer entertaining enough. The lower combat hall is packed by the time Marek arrives. Students crowd 3 tiers of stone benches around a sunken arena covered in old summoning scars. Iron lanterns burn green along the walls. Above the arena hangs a massive corpse bell. This one does not measure successful summoning. It rings when a student's control tether breaks. 3 rings means immediate intervention. Nobody wants 3 rings. Marek steps onto the sand. Tiber floats beside him. The ancient champion takes one look at the arena and grimaces. Too small. Marek keeps walking. Bad sightlines. Silence. Terrible drainage. Marek finally mutters. It is an arena. It is a basement with confidence. Several students nearby glance at him. Marek coughs into his fist. Right. Still the only person hearing the dead war hero. Across the arena, Marek rolls one shoulder. 3 skeletons stand behind him. Not practice rats. Not disposable birds. Military frames. Each wears Academy-issued rib plating and carries a wooden polearm weighted with iron cores. A serious combat set. Marek stops at his assigned marker. Professor Isabel stands on the judge's platform. Instructor Hellman waits beside her. That alone tells Marek this is not a normal practical. Hellman rarely attends combat control sessions. Ronan sits near the front row. That explains more. Tiber notices him. The trench casualty. Marek almost smiles. Almost. Professor Isabel raises one hand. Today's exercise tests adaptive control under pressure. A murmur runs through the benches. Students expected target practice, not a duel. Isabel continues. Second, year volunteers will apply controlled aggression. First years will maintain 1 active summon while protecting their tether point. Marek looks at the chalk circle behind his feet. Small, deliberately exposed. So that is the lesson. Protect the anchor while maintaining control. Reasonable. Then Isabel reads the pairings. Marek Voss against Marek Voss. The murmuring gets louder. Even Professor Hellman turns slightly. Interesting. Marek glances toward Ronan. The noble student is not smiling this time. He looks attentive. Much worse. Tiber follows Marek's eyes. This was arranged. Marek already knows. Marek is too strong for a first-year baseline exercise. Not illegally strong. That would be obvious. Just strong enough that everyone can call the mismatch educational. A clean humiliation. Marek removes a small wrapped bundle from his sleeve. The skeletal rat unfolds onto his palm. Tiber looks at it. Then at Marek's 3 armored skeletons. No. Marek ignores him. No. The rat drops to the sand. Tiber drifts directly in front of Marek. You trained the crow, Marek whispers. Too noticeable. The hound frame? Still noticeable. Tiber points at the rat. This is an insult. Exactly. For a moment, the champion says nothing. Then understanding settles in. His expression changes. Not approval, something more dangerous. Amusement. Marek laughs from across the arena. You brought a rat? The benches react immediately. A few students snicker. Ronan does not. Marek notices that. Good. At least one person is learning. Professor Isabel's eyes remain on the summon. Both combatants ready? Marek lowers his spear. Marek nods. The corpse bell gives one low toll. The match begins. Marek attacks immediately. No warning, no testing strike. All 3 skeleton soldiers sprint forward in a staggered wedge. Fast. Much faster than standard classroom corpses. The lead frame drives its polearm straight toward Marek's chest. He moves half a step late. The wooden blade clips his shoulder. Pain explodes down his arm. The benches erupt. Tiber's voice cuts through everything. Again, Marek retreats. Second skeleton. Horizontal strike. He ducks badly enough that the iron-weighted shaft still catches the top of his back. Our necromancer slams into the sand. Garrick smiles. The third skeleton turns toward the exposed tether circle. Stage 1. Take the hit. Marek's skull is ringing. His left shoulder already feels swollen. The crowd sees exactly what it expects. Weak student. Weak summon. Bad matchup. Marek pushes himself upright. His rat has not moved. That earns another laugh. Tiber does not laugh. He floats beside Garrick's lead skeleton. Front unit overcommits after downward attacks. Marek wipes blood from his lip. The second soldier shifts. Tiber moves with it. Rear foot turns before lateral strikes. The third skeleton approaches the tether circle. Controller is not giving separate commands. That matters. Marek looks at Garrick. The second-year student's fingers move in repeated paired patterns. Left, right, hold, advance. 3 skeletons. 1. Command architecture. Efficient by Academy standards. Predictable by Tiber's. Stage 2. Read the enemy. Garrick points. The third skeleton brings its polearm down toward Marek's tether mark. Marek flicks one finger. The rat moves. Nobody laughs now. It crosses the distance so quickly that the motion barely registers. Not because it is powerful. Because every useless movement has been removed. No raised spine. No dramatic leap. No wasted turn. The rat slides beneath the descending polearm and strikes the skeleton's ankle joint. Tiny jaws close around one tendon wire. Snap. The armored skeleton's foot rotates 2 inches. That is all. The polearm misses the tether circle. Garrick frowns. The audience quiets. Tiber points at the lead soldier. Now. Marek gives the smallest possible command. His rat changes direction. The lead skeleton charges again. Marek does not retreat this time. The spear comes down. The old champion's voice sharpens. 3 steps. Marek takes 1. 2 slow. Second. Turn. Third. Marek pivots. The strike misses his ribs by less than an inch. His hand touches the skeleton's elbow as it passes. Not to attack. To feel. Joint tension. Mana flow. Command direction. For 1 heartbeat, that strange overlap returns. The world strips itself into lines. Marek sees the skeleton's body as a lattice of force. Mana enters through the upper spine, splits at the shoulders, runs too heavily through the dominant arm. Garrick is reinforcing attack strength at the cost of rotational recovery. There, a weakness. The sensation vanishes. Marek nearly loses balance. Tiber's face goes rigid. You saw it. Marek does not answer. He sends 1 pulse through the rat. It attacks the lead skeleton's opposite ankle, not breaking anything, adjusting. 1 small impact shifts the frame stance at the exact moment Garrick commands another thrust. The skeleton's own force twists through a bad angle. Its knee buckles. The whole armored frame crashes shoulder first into the second soldier. The crowd explodes. Professor Isabel leans forward. Hellman stops writing. Ronan's expression finally changes. Garrick looks down at his own hands. He did not understand what happened. Good. Marek does. That is better. Garrick recovers quickly. Credit where it is due. He separates the formations. 1 skeleton attacks Marek. 1 attacks the rat. The third circles toward the tether. Tiber studies them. Better. Marek almost looks at him. The champion sounds pleased that the opponent is adapting. Of course he does. Garrick increases output. Mana thickens around the 3 corpses. Their movements sharpen. The first skeleton feints high and kicks low. Marek takes the kick. Hard. Air leaves his lungs. He rolls across the sand. The crowd roars again. Tiber drifts after him. Feet. Marek forces himself up. Feet. Another strike comes. Marek shifts his weight. The polearm scrapes past. Hip. He turns. A second blow misses. Shoulder. Marek drops. The third slices overhead. Now students stop cheering. Something feels wrong to them. Marek is still getting pressured, still looks weaker. But Garrick is no longer landing clean hits. Tiber's lessons are becoming visible through absence. Missed strikes. Wasted momentum. Bad angles. Marek does not look stronger. Garrick simply starts looking less accurate. That is exactly the kind of strength Marek wants. The rat races beneath the second skeleton. Garrick anticipates it this time. A heel comes down. Marek's command shifts. The rat folds flat. The boot crashes over empty ribs. The little skeleton shoots forward again. Tiber points. Controller. Marek understands. The summons are not the real target. Garrick is. Not physically. His habits. Every time the rat approaches the tether circle, Garrick's left thumb flexes. Every time he orders a heavy strike, his wrist turns inward. Every time 2 skeletons receive paired commands, his index finger locks. Tiny tells. Useless to most necromancers. Obvious to history's greatest battlefield commander. Marek starts predicting orders before the corpses move. 1 step right. Duck. Rat left. Pause. Advance. The battle changes. Slowly. Almost invisibly. Garrick does not notice at first. Then his lead skeleton misses an attack Marek should never have dodged. The second loses the rat twice. The third reaches the tether circle and gets redirected by a single ankle strike again. Garrick's smile disappears. He begins giving individual commands. That costs more mana. Exactly as Marek hoped. Tiber notices instantly. He broke formation. Marek feels it too. Garrick's output spikes. 3 separate command streams. More flexibility. Much higher drain. The second-year student is still stronger, but now he is spending strength to compensate for uncertainty. Marek is doing the opposite. 1 rat. Minimal signals. Maximum mechanical response. The difference starts eating the gap between them. Professor Isabel glances toward Helmand. This was not in his last evaluation. Helmand's expression remains flat. No, Ronan hears them. His jaw tightens. Garrick attacks harder. 1 skeleton abandons Marek entirely and rushes the tether circle. The second pins the rat against the arena wall. The third comes directly for Marek. 3 simultaneous threats. The bell remains silent. No tether break yet. But this is close. Very close. Marek's reserves drop below 1/3. His shoulder hurts. His ribs are worse. The rat has 1 hind leg trapped beneath an armored foot. Garrick sees the opening. There. All 3 skeletons receive full output commands. The arena fills with mana. Tiber looks at Marek. Now show me whether the last 3 nights were wasted. Marek exhales. He releases the rat, not dismisses it. Releases direct control. Garrick sees the tether slacken. So does Professor Isabel. Her hand moves toward the intervention seal. Then the rat moves by itself, not independently. Not truly, but the movement framework Marek has drilled into it does not require constant instructions anymore. One central intention remains. Return. Everything else is mechanics. The rat twists its spine. Its trapped leg disconnects at the joint. The little skeleton leaves the limb behind. Slides between the larger construct's feet. Runs. The audience falls dead silent. Marek shifts his own stance. Tiber calls the sequence. Left. Marek moves. The attacking skeleton thrusts. Miss. Inside. Marek steps past the weapon. Turn. He rotates beside the corpse. 1 hand lands against its back. That shared sense overlap hits again. Harder this time. Lines. Angles. Mana channels. The whole skeleton opens before Marek's perception like a diagram drawn in light. He does not overpower the tether. He does not seize control. He does something much smaller. 1 necromantic pulse enters the corpse at the exact point where Garrick's command branches. Not enough to control. Just enough to delay 1 instruction. Half a heartbeat, that is all. The skeleton's upper body turns. Its legs do not. Momentum handles the rest. The armored corpse crashes into the unit, attacking Marek's tether. Both frames go down. Garrick's eyes widen. The rat reaches the third. Its remaining 3 legs hit the ground in perfect rhythm. Tiber points toward the polearm shaft. Up! Marek sends a pulse. The rat climbs the weapon, ribs scraping wood. Skull low. No wasted motion. Garrick jerks the skeleton backward. Too late. The rat reaches the shoulder. Then the neck. Then the command spike embedded at the base of the skull. The small jaws close. Crack. Garrick's control architecture collapses. 1 skeleton freezes. The 2 tangled frames stop moving. The corpse bell rings. Once. The sound hits the arena like thunder. Garrick stares. His central tether has broken. Nobody speaks. Marek stands in the middle of the sand, breathing too hard. His academy robe is torn. 1 shoulder is purple. Blood runs from the corner of his mouth. He looks terrible, which is perfect. The skeletal rat drops from Garrick's disabled soldier and lands badly. 1 leg missing. Several ribs cracked. Skull still split. Tiber looks down at it. The champion gives a solemn nod. Acceptable. For him, that might qualify as a medal ceremony. Professor Isabel raises her hand. Match concluded. Noise detonates through the hall. Some students insist Garrick made a mistake. Others argue about the rat. A few start recreating the movement with their fingers. Ronan says nothing at all. Garrick looks furious. Not humiliated. Confused. That is more useful. He walks toward Marek. For a second, everyone expects trouble. Instead, the second-year student stops several feet away. How did you interfere with my 3rd frame? Marek looks at him. Tiber leans beside Garrick. Tell him poor footwork. Marek almost does. Instead, he gives the safest answer. I didn't take control. Garrick waits. Marek gestures toward the fallen skeleton. You gave it too much forward force. Technically true. Garrick looks at the corpse. Then at Marek. He knows there is more, but he cannot prove it. Professor Isabel calls Marek toward the judge's platform. Tiber follows. Hellman's evaluation slate is already open. Marek prepares for questions. He gets one. Where did you learn movement optimization? Marek answers immediately. Observation. Tiber snorts. Hellman's eyes narrow. Professor Isabel looks toward Marek's broken rat. The construct functioned after you relaxed the active tether. Residual command structure. Residual structures do not adapt. Marek pauses. That is a problem. He has crossed the line from unusual efficiency into something Academy theory does not explain cleanly. Not sentience, nothing close. But his summons are beginning to carry movement principles rather than individual commands. Like habits. Dead things with trained habits. That concept does not exist in the first-year curriculum. Possibly not in the modern curriculum at all. Tiber becomes suddenly still. He is looking above the judge's platform. At the massive corpse bell, more specifically, at the metal bracket behind it, Marek follows his gaze. Almost hidden by soot is the 7-line symbol. Again, Tiber's expression hardens. But this time something else happens. The champion looks toward the northern wall. What? Marek barely moves his lips. Tiber does not answer. He drifts through the judge's platform, straight toward the wall. Stops, then stares at the stone as if it should not be there. That corridor. Marek looks. There is no corridor. Only masonry. Tiber turns. There was a passage there. Marek's attention sharpens. When? During the siege. Marek almost reacts. Blackmere Academy claims it was founded nearly a century after Tiber's death. According to every history text, this hill held nothing but burial caves during the War of 9 Crowns. Tiber floats closer to the wall. No academy. His voice is low now. No combat hall. He touches the stone and passes through it. But there was a military crypt beneath this exact hill. Marek says nothing. There, the mismatch. Not a vague old memory. A concrete contradiction. The academy was built over something that official history says never existed. And someone has carved Tiber's 7-line symbol throughout the foundation. Marek files that away immediately. The investigation changes. He had planned to search old academy records. Too obvious. Too modern. Now he needs construction records, foundation maps, war-era burial surveys, anything predating Blackmere itself. Different plan. Tiber emerges from the wall. His face is grim. Do not tell them. Marek looks toward Isabel and Hellmund. Neither noticed the exchange. Our necromancer gives the smallest nod. Recalibration complete. Professor Isabel hands him a cloth for his lip. You passed. Marek blinks. Not because of the result. Because of the wording. Passed, not excelled. Perfect. He takes the cloth. Hellmund writes one final note on the slate. Marek catches only 2 words. Control irregularity. Good. Let them think irregular. Irregular can be dismissed. Prodigy attracts sponsorship. Anomaly attracts cages. He turns away. Then Professor Isabel adds something. Voss. Marek stops. Tomorrow. Lower Archive 3. That is not good. Professor? Bring your notes on residual command structure. Ronan looks over from the benches. Garrick does too. Marek feels the situation shifting around him. One public victory. That is all it takes. Not enough to expose the truth. Enough to start rumors. Enough to make instructors curious. Enough to make other students wonder whether Blackmere's weakest necromancer has been pretending. Tiber drifts beside him as they leave the arena. You showed too much. Marek gives him a flat look. You told me to win. I assumed competence would include discretion. Marek keeps walking. The champion follows. Your 3rd step was late. Marek says nothing. Your shoulder dropped twice. Silence. And allowing the rat to lose a leg was inefficient. Marek finally stops in the corridor. It won. Tiber considers that. Then looks toward the skeletal rat curled inside Marek's sleeve. 3 legs now. Cracked spine. 1 fang missing. Still functioning. The ancient champion folds his arms. Yes. A pause. It did. The rat's skull rises slightly. Marek notices a faint silver line running through one of its repaired vertebrae. That was not there before. Neither was the tiny pattern now etched along the inside of its jaw. 3 short strokes. Like the beginning of some old military marking, Tiber notices too. His expression changes. Not recognition. Concern. Marek gently lifts the construct into his palm. The silver line pulses once. His tether responds. And for the briefest instant, Marek sees not one skeletal rat but the outline of a much larger creature standing over it. Long spine. Armored shoulders. A predator's skull. Then the image disappears. Evolution pending. Not now. Not soon. But possible. Marek closes his fingers carefully around the little construct. Tiber looks toward the corridor ahead. Archive tomorrow. Marek nods. Training tonight. Marek exhales through his nose. The champion looks at him. You nearly lost. I won. You nearly lost badly. I still won. Tiber's spectral face twists into the familiar expression of a man. Personally betrayed by modern standards. History remembers victories and therefore teaches the wrong lessons. Marek starts walking again. Tiber follows. Midnight. Marek does not answer. 11. Still nothing. 10. Marek keeps moving. The old champion smiles. Another negotiation begins. And 3 floors beneath them, behind a wall that Blackmere's official maps insist is solid stone, something answers the silver mark in Marek's skeletal rat with a single dull knock. Then another. Then silence. Lower Archive 3 has no windows, no dust, and far too many locks for a room supposedly dedicated to first-year theory. Marek notices that before Professor Isabel even opens the door, Tiber notices something else. Those hinges are military. Marek keeps his face neutral. Isabel turns the second key. 3 iron bolts withdraw inside the stone. The door opens. Rows of narrow shelves stretch into darkness. No decorative grimoires. No student copies. No public catalog plaques. Just black document boxes, sealed bone cylinders, and stacks of brittle field journals tied with gray cord. Interesting. Very interesting. Professor Isabel steps inside. Close the door. Marek does. Tiber simply passes through it. Naturally, the champion looks around. His expression darkens almost immediately. These are battlefield records. Marek says nothing. Isabel walks toward a central table. A prepared corpse hand rests beside several control diagrams, so this is not interrogation. At least not directly. Show me what you did yesterday. Marek puts down his notes. Tiber floats behind the professor. Do not show her everything. That was already the plan. Marek redraws the simplified version of his command structure. Central locomotion instruction. Reduced joint enforcement. Weighted response through the hips and spine. Nothing about Tiber. Nothing about the shared perception. And absolutely nothing about trained residual behavior. Professor Isabel reads without interrupting. That somehow feels worse than criticism. Then she places 2 fingers on the prepared hand. Apply it. Marek forms a tether. The corpse hand twitches. He deliberately keeps the improvement modest. Too much efficiency would invite questions. Too little would look suspicious after yesterday. The hand crawls across the table, turns a page, returns. Mana consumption drops by roughly 1/5. Professor Isabel checks the measuring crystal. Her eyebrows rise, only slightly. Tiber leans toward Marek. 1/5? Marek ignores him. You managed nearly half with the rat. Still nothing. Coward. That one almost gets a reaction. Isabel looks up. Again. Marek repeats the test. Same result. Where did you derive the weighting principle? From damaged constructs. A technically true answer. Professor Isabel studies him. Most students repair damaged constructs. Marek shrugs. Repairs cost money. That gets the smallest hint of amusement from her. Good. Poverty remains extremely useful camouflage. Isabel moves toward a shelf. She removes 3 old journals. Read these. Marek looks at the covers. Field Necromancy, Western Campaign, Practical Corpse Logistics, March Formations under Limited Mana. Tiber goes absolutely still. Marek notices. Of course he does. The oldest journal carries a faded emblem. A split sun, vertical sword. Tiber's emblem. Professor Isabel sets the books down. Modern control doctrine favors direct command saturation because it scales well under standardized training. Marek opens the first journal. The paper smells like old salt. Isabel continues. Older schools sometimes use distributed movement logic. Tiber's jaw tightens. Sometimes, Marek ignores him harder. Why did they stop? Professor Isabel looks toward the prepared hand. Because those methods required understanding bodies instead of overpowering them. Tiber actually smiles. Finally. Someone modern has said something he likes. Then Isabel ruins it. And because the old method was inefficient for mass deployment, the smile disappears. Idiot. Marek turns a page to hide his mouth. Professor Isabel walks to another shelf. The Academy has not taught those methods in nearly 3 centuries. That matters. 3 centuries, not 6. Meaning Tiber's era predates even the techniques preserved here. Marek scans the first journal. Lines of formation sketches, joint notes, mana ratios. Primitive compared to what Tiber has taught him, but similar enough to prove the core idea once existed. Then he sees a phrase, residual discipline. Marek's attention sharpens. He reads, a properly drilled corpse may retain postural preference after command reduction. Not memory, not intelligence, preference, exactly what his rat is developing. Marek's pulse increases. Tiber reads over his shoulder. That phrasing came later. Marek barely moves his lips. How much later? After my death. Professor Isabel turns back. Marek immediately looks down. Something wrong? No. Tiber circles the table. Ask who wrote it. Marek waits 2 beats, then taps the journal. Who is the author? Isabel looks at the spine. Master Corin Vale. The surname lands strangely. Vale. Garrick Vale. Marek remembers yesterday's opponent. Professor Isabel notices his expression. Yes, same family. Interesting again. His descendants abandoned the method generations ago. Tiber snorts. Explains the boy. Marek continues reading. Corin Vale served Blackmere's predecessor institution, not Blackmere itself. The line is easy to miss. Marek reads it twice. Predecessor institution. Official history claims there was no institution here before the academy. The contradiction widens. He turns another page. A map appears, not detailed, just a rough training ground layout. Circular hall, northern corridor, burial chambers. Marek's heartbeat slows instead of quickening. That is how he knows this matters. The circular hall matches yesterday's arena. The northern corridor matches the passage Tiber remembers. The academy did not merely build over an old military crypt. It built directly into one, then erased that fact from public history. Marek closes the journal. Not too quickly. Professor Isabel watches him. You found something? Old architecture. A safe answer. Isabel looks toward the page. For one uncomfortable moment, Marek thinks she knows exactly what he has noticed. Then she turns away. Archive 3 closes at dusk. Copy anything useful before then. Marek blinks. That is it? No interrogation, no threat, no warning. Just access. That is almost more suspicious. Tiber watches her carefully. She knows more. Marek agrees. But knowing more and being hostile are not the same thing. Not yet. He spends the next 3 hours copying movement diagrams. Real ones. Useful ones. Enough to justify his presence. Meanwhile, he memorizes everything else. Names. Dates. Old facility labels. Mentions of sealed lower passages. One repeated term appears across several journals. The remnant hall. Never explained. Never mapped completely. Every reference ends before describing what it actually contains. Marek writes none of that down. Too dangerous. At noon, Professor Isabel leaves. The moment the door closes, Tiber speaks. Corin Vale was not a necromancer. Marek stops writing. What? He was a quartermaster. That changes everything. Tiber points at the journal. He managed corpse labor during the retreat from Ostel. Marek looks at the author line again. Master Corin Vale. Blackmere history lists him as one of the founders of structured necromancy. Tiber looks disgusted. He hated magic. Marek slowly closes the book. History is not merely incomplete, it has been rewritten. Someone took battlefield logistics from Tiber's era, formalized them later, then attached different identities to the people involved. That explains why the champion keeps calling modern doctrine familiar but wrong. The bones remained. The names changed. Marek opens the next journal. Did Corin know the 7-line symbol? Tiber's answer comes too quickly. Yes, there. First admission. Marek looks up. Tiber realizes the mistake. The champion's expression hardens. Marek waits. Silence stretches. Who used it? Tiber does not answer. Marek returns to reading. Fine. He can wait. Dead men have all the time in the world. Apparently, so do stubborn necromancers. Later that afternoon, the first rumor reaches the archive door. 2 first-years whisper outside. Marek catches his own name. Then the rat. Then the phrase, hidden technique. By dinner, it gets worse. Someone claims Marek defeated Garrick without using direct commands. Someone else claims he controlled all 3 enemy skeletons simultaneously. One particularly creative version says the rat bit through an iron command spike. It was bronze. People really have no respect for materials. Ronan finally approaches him near the lower cloister. No audience. No dramatic challenge. That alone makes Marek pay attention. Tiber appears through a pillar. The trench casualty returns. Ronan stops several steps away. You held back in class. Marek gives him a blank look. Everyone holds back in class. You held back badly. Tiber nods. I agree with this one. Traitor. Ronan folds his arms. Vale trains under the upper combat division. Marek waits. He does not lose to first years. Yesterday suggests otherwise. Ronan's eyes narrow. Good. That line sounded slightly more confident than Marek intended. Tiber looks pleased. Bad sign. Ronan lowers his voice. The Ember Circle is asking about you. Marek knows the name. Everyone does. Blackmere's Ember Circle is an unofficial cohort of high-performing students who receive access to advanced combat rooms, faculty, demonstrations, and private dungeon exercises. Not technically an elite class. Functionally, absolutely an elite class. Marek looks unimpressed. Why? Because you embarrassed one of their candidates. There it is. Influence expanding. Not through fame. Through inconvenience. Much more believable. Ronan studies him. They'll test you. Who? The Circle. When? Ronan almost smiles. If they told people, it wouldn't be much of a test. Tiber sighs. Modern warriors have discovered ambushes. Marek turns to leave. Ronan stops him with one sentence. Vale is not angry. Marek glances back. That should concern you more. Interesting. Garrick being furious would be simple. A rival who studies defeat is more dangerous. Tiber's expression becomes approving. At least one of them has a pulse. By evening, Marek changes his training routine. Not because of Ronan. Because the archive gave him something better. Old formation drills. He brings 6 damaged constructs into the ossuary. The rat, the crow, 2 skeletal hands, a canine frame missing half its ribs, and a broken training soldier discarded after last month's exams. Tiber examines the collection. This is becoming less embarrassing. High praise. Marek places the soldier in the center. Tonight's objective is not strength. Coordination. Modern necromancers control multiple summons by issuing parallel commands. Advance. Guard. Attack. Retreat. Marek tries something different. Rolls. The rat scouts. The crow tracks overhead. The hands manipulate objects. The canine intercepts. The soldier anchors. 1 behavior set per construct, then 1 central intent. Protect the circle. The first attempt fails spectacularly. The crow crashes. The canine attacks the wrong mannequin. 1 hand steals Marek's bootlace. Tiber looks personally offended. Again. Second attempt. Better. Third. The rat starts moving before the soldier fully turns. Fourth. The crow signals movement with a wing click. The canine responds. Marek freezes. He did not command that interaction. Not directly. He checks the tethers. No independent thought. No spirit possession. Nothing forbidden. The constructs are simply reacting to trained signals. Behavior linked to behavior. A chain. Tiber notices too. That is formation doctrine. Marek nods. With corpses. Obviously. No one teaches it that way. Tiber looks toward the 6 constructs. Then everyone teaching you is lazy. Marek almost argues. Then thinks about it. Fair. He reduces his mana output. The formation continues. 5% less. Then 10. At 15, the crow loses coordination. Marek restores a fraction. Stable again. The soldier's movements sharpen next. Something has changed in Tiber too. His lower body now remains visible most of the time. Boots, greaves. Even the broken edge of his cloak. The bond is stabilizing as Marek applies the champion's knowledge, not from mana, from use. That possibility is deeply uncomfortable. Marek files it away. The skeletal rat changes most. The silver line along its spine has spread. Now 3 vertebrae glow faintly whenever it performs a successful intercept. The missing hind leg has not regrown. Instead, Marek replaces it with a longer piece from another rat. Tiber objects immediately. Uneven. Temporary. Bad balance. Then help. The champion pauses. Marek notices the shift. 3 days ago, Tiber would have insulted the construct. Now he studies it. Seriously. Longer rear limb means the left turn becomes faster. Marek adjusts the hip socket. But the right turn worsens. He changes the angle. Compensate through the spine. Marek does. The rat stands. Moves. Turns left. Fast. Turns right. Almost as fast. Tiber circles it. Then points toward the replacement leg. Keep it. Marek looks up. The champion shrugs. Ugly can be useful. The rat clicks its jaw. A silver mark appears along the new bone. Not 3 strokes this time. 4. Preparation. Still incomplete. But unmistakable. Something inside the construct is taking shape around the training itself. Not raw power. Identity through function. That is far more interesting. 3 nights later, Marek is summoned to the upper combat floor. The invitation is official. Black wax. Ember seal. Professor Isabel's countersignature. Tiber reads it over his shoulder. Trap? Probably. Good. Marek looks at him. Tiber looks genuinely pleased. Controlled environments teach very little. Naturally. The upper combat floor feels like an entirely different academy. Wide corridors, reinforced windows, weapon displays, students wearing fitted black uniforms instead of basic gray robes, no dripping ceilings, no embalming smell. Civilization apparently begins wherever rich necromancers stop handling actual corpses. Marek reaches Hall 9. Garrick waits outside. No spear today, no smile either. You came. You invited me? No. Interesting. Garrick opens the door. Inside, 6 Ember Circle members stand around a raised tactical table. Ronan is there too. That is unexpected. At the far end sits a third-year student Marek recognizes immediately, Celine Arkwright, top combat necromancer below the senior division. She controls 4 night-grade corpses simultaneously. Rumor says 3 noble guilds already offered contracts. Tiber takes one look at her stance. Acceptable. Marek nearly stops walking. That may be the highest rating any living person has received. Celine studies him. Then his sleeve. The rat. Marek looks down. A skull peeks out. Apparently. She gestures toward the table. A battlefield model sits across it. Miniature walls. Bone markers. 6 black pieces. 12 white. No combat challenge. Strategy. Good. Very good. Celine speaks. Vale says you did not beat his summons. Garrick remains silent. You beat his command structure. Marek says nothing. She continues. So show us whether it was an accident. Tiber drifts beside the board. His entire demeanor changes. The irritation vanishes. The sarcasm disappears. For the first time, Marek sees something closer to the figure painted across 6 centuries of history. A commander. Tiber studies the pieces once. Whiteside is already dead. Marek examines the board. White has twice the units. Higher ground, better walls. Most students would choose white immediately. Marek points to black. I'll take those. A few circle members exchange looks. Celine smiles slightly. Why? Tiber answers, even though only Marek can hear. Because the bridge is a lie. Marek sees it. One central crossing. Apparently essential, but the terrain markers around it create a channel. Any force committing to the bridge loses lateral movement. The larger army becomes a disadvantage. Marek looks at Celine. Because white has too many units to use the ground properly. That gets silence. Then interest. Real interest. The exercise begins. And for the next 40 minutes, Marek lets Tiber teach him war without anyone knowing the dead legend is standing at his shoulder. Not commands. Questions. Where does the enemy want you? What resource are they pretending not to value? Which unit cannot afford to move? Why is that? Formation symmetrical? Marek answers through pieces. He gives ground. Abandons one flank. Sacrifices 2 units. Ronan visibly thinks he has made a mistake. Garrick does not. Celine watches carefully. Then the black pieces close around the bridge. White's numerical advantage becomes congestion. Their rear units cannot reinforce. Their front cannot retreat. Marek takes the command marker. Game over. No cheering. This audience is better than that. They simply stare at the board. Celine leans back. Again. Tiber smiles. The second game is harder. The third harder still. Marek loses the third. Tiber criticizes him for the entire fourth. By the 5th, 3 Ember Circle students are arguing about his approach. By the 6th, Garrick starts predicting Marek's traps. Good. That forces adaptation. Exactly what Marek needs. When the session ends, Celine slides a black metal token across the table. Ember insignia. Temporary access. Not membership. Something better. Permission. You can use the upper tactical hall twice a week. Ronan looks annoyed. Garrick looks thoughtful. Tiber looks bored. Marek takes the token. His world has just expanded. 3 days ago, he was a first-year failure practicing with discarded bones. Now he has archive access. Upper floor training access. A second-year rival studying him. An elite student evaluating him. And rumors spreading through both lower divisions. Too fast. Far too fast. Marek knows it. Tiber does too. Visibility is dangerous. Marek turns the token between 2 fingers. That sounds almost modern. Visibility was dangerous before your century invented bad food. Fair enough. That night, Marek returns to Lower Archive 3 alone. No professor. No formal permission beyond the Ember token and Isabel's archive authorization. He brings the bronze plate, the 7-line symbol, the old map, and a question. Where is the remnant hall? He compares the ancient floor plan to Blackmere's current foundation survey. Most corridors overlap. Some have been renamed. Others filled. One does not exist on any modern map. Northern Passage, behind yesterday's arena, exactly where Tiber remembers it. Marek traces the route. The passage should descend beneath the combat floor, then turn east, then open into a chamber larger than the entire current ossuary. The remnant hall. Tiber stands beside him, silent. Marek compares measurements. Something does not fit. The hall extends directly beneath Lower Archive 3. He looks around, then down. Professor Isabel did not choose this room randomly. Of course not. Marek kneels beside the central table. The stone floor looks normal, mostly. One corner shows a thin circular groove beneath years of polishing. He moves the table. Tiber's face changes. Marek. First time, not boy. Not necromancer, his name. That alone is enough warning. Marek clears the remaining dust. A large seal appears across the floor. Circle. 7 descending lines. And around it, an inscription hidden beneath the table legs. This one is not corroded. Not fragmented. Perfectly preserved. Tiber reads it before Marek can ask. His voice is almost flat. Registry of retained souls. Silence fills the archive. Marek looks up. Tiber does not move. History's greatest champion stares at the seal like a man finally standing in front of the grave he has spent 6 centuries avoiding. Marek's eyes return to the inscription. There are names carved around the outer ring, dozens. Some worn away, some still legible. Then he finds one. Tiber Wren. Not a memorial, not a dedication. A registry entry. Beside the name sits a mark. Status. Marek cannot read the old word. Tiber can. The champion closes his eyes. When he speaks, all irritation is gone. Retained. Marek looks at him. The implication settles slowly. Tiber was never randomly pulled from some distant afterlife. His soul was already here, stored beneath Blackmere. Waiting. And if the registry contains dozens of names, then history's greatest champion may not be the only legend buried inside the academy who never actually left. The floor answers Marek's question before Tiber does. One of the names lights up. Not brightly. Just a thread of silver tracing around the letters carved beside Tiber Wren. The reaction spreads. One name, then another, then 5, then 12. Marek immediately steps off the seal. Too late. A pulse runs beneath lower archive 3. Every funerary lamp goes out at once. Darkness swallows the room. Then something knocks from below. Once, twice, 3 times. Tiber's head snaps toward the floor. That is not a door. Marek reaches for the skeletal rat inside his sleeve. What is it? Another knock. This one comes from somewhere deeper, much deeper. Tiber does not answer, because now dozens of voices whisper beneath the stone. Not words, not yet. More like people breathing through a wall. Marek crouches beside the registry. His mana responds without permission. Thin threads slip from his fingers toward the engraved names. He cuts them immediately. The silver glow fades. The whispering stops. Silence returns. Marek remains still. Tiber stares at him. Neither needs to say what just happened. The seal recognizes Marek. That is worse than simply recognizing Tiber. Marek takes out the bronze plate from the ossuary. The smaller 7-line symbol on its surface is glowing too. 3 objects. The summoning room mark. The ossuary plate. The registry floor. Same design. Same response. Not decoration. Infrastructure. Tiber slowly kneels beside the seal. His hand hovers over his own name. For once, the old champion has no criticism ready. That is unsettling enough by itself. Marek studies the inscription. Retained means what? Tiber says nothing. Marek looks at him. The champion's face remains fixed on the floor. Tiber. A long pause. Then the dead warrior speaks. We used another word. Marek waits. Reserve. That word lands differently. Marek looks at the dozens of names. Not graves. Not memorials. Reserve. The dead were stored like weapons. Tiber's expression says he already hates where this is going. Marek traces the outer ring without touching it. Who built this? Tiber finally answers. We did. Not exactly comforting. The champion stands. His lower body flickers again. A war does ugly things to language. Marek waits for more. Nothing comes. Of course, 6 centuries of death apparently does not cure stubbornness. So Marek stops asking. He searches. The archive shelves suddenly matter in a different way. He starts pulling every box associated with the Western campaigns, corpse logistics, or Blackmere's predecessor institution. Not reading everything, matching symbols, dates, construction references. Tiber watches him for several minutes, then sighs. You organize documents like a quartermaster with a head injury. Marek does not look up. Help or complain. Both, naturally. 20 minutes later, the archive floor is covered in carefully arranged records. Marek builds a timeline. 6 centuries ago, Tiber fights in the War of 9 Crowns. The hill beneath Blackmere serves as a military crypt. Several commanders disappear from official records after the final campaigns. Roughly 50 years later, a private mortuary institution forms here. Its surviving documents call the underground structure the Remnant Hall. 2 centuries after that, the institution becomes Blackmere Academy. Then references to the hall abruptly vanish. Not gradually. All at once. Someone cleans the record. Marek finds the break in a ledger. One page discusses maintenance costs for retention chambers. The next refers to ordinary foundation reinforcement. Same year. Same handwriting. Different vocabulary. That is deliberate. Tiber reads over his shoulder. They renamed everything. Marek nods. The champion points at another column. And lowered the reported count. Marek looks. The earlier ledger lists 47 active chambers. Later, construction records claim there are only 12 burial cavities beneath the academy. 35 chambers disappear on paper. Marek closes the book. That is not accounting. That is concealment. He checks the registry around the floor. 47 names. Exact match. The final piece clicks into place. This entire academy does not sit on a graveyard. It sits on a storage system. A very old one, and nobody is supposed to know. Marek looks at Tiber. The dead champion looks back. Why retain souls? Tiber's jaw tightens. Marek expects another refusal. Instead, the registry answers for him. The bronze plate in Marek's hand heats suddenly. A crack opens through the dust beside the central table. Not in the floor, in the seal itself. 7 narrow segments slide apart. A circular section of stone lowers by less than an inch. Ancient runes ignite around the opening. Tiber recoils. Marek, our necromancer is already moving. He grabs the rat. Steps back. The central slab drops. Not far. Just enough to reveal a hollow beneath it. Inside rests a glass cylinder. No, not glass. Some kind of crystal. Cloudy silver liquid fills the vessel. Suspended inside is a broken metal badge shaped like a split sun. Tiber's emblem. Marek does not touch it. Good instinct. The vessel reacts anyway. A projection erupts above the floor. Not a ghost. A memory. Figures appear in pale light. Dozens of soldiers stand inside the same underground structure before Blackmere exists. No academy walls. No lecture halls. Just military stone. Old banners. Blood. Stretchers. And Tiber. Alive. Younger. Angrier. Still criticizing everyone. Apparently some things transcend mortality. The memory has no sound. That makes it worse. Marek watches soldiers carry bodies toward circular chambers. Not common infantry. Officers. Battle mages. Commanders. People with insignia. Each body is placed inside a marked ring. Necromancers surround them. 7 lines activate. Then a soul rises. Not violently. Deliberately. The spirit is anchored into the chamber beneath. Tiber's face turns hard. Marek watches another. Then another. One dead specialist after another. Preserved. Stored. Not raised as undead. Not forced into corpses. Their identities remain intact. Their knowledge remains intact. That is the difference. Modern necromancy preserves obedience. This system preserves expertise. Marek understands immediately. The remnant hall is not an army. It is a library made from people. Tiber looks sickened by the description, even though Marek never says it aloud. The memory changes. A map appears. 7 major battlefronts, each connected to the hill. Symbols move across the map. Command requests, soul assignments, specialists deployed through summoning anchors. A dead siege engineer advises one front. A cavalry commander appears at another. A poison physician at a third. The retained souls are being summoned temporarily by living officers, mentors, strategists, advisors, not soldiers. Tiber stares. Something in his expression breaks for half a second. Recognition, then anger. The final image appears. Tiber himself, bleeding heavily. Standing inside a retention circle, 3 people surround him. One is Corinvale. The quartermaster history later calls a necromantic master. Another wears a black mantle marked with 7 silver lines. The third figure has been deliberately erased from the memory, not blurred by age, erased. A human-shaped gap tears through the projection. Marek leans forward. Interesting. Even the magical record has been edited. Tiber sees it too. His expression becomes murderous. The living Tiber in the memory says something. No sound survives. Corin grabs his shoulder. Tiber steps into the circle. The 7-line seal ignites. Then the projection ends. Darkness. The cylinder cools. Marek does not move. Neither does Tiber. The champion's memories clearly do not match what they just watched. That matters more than anything else. You don't remember this. Tiber looks at the empty air where his living self stood. No. Simple. No sarcasm. No denial. Just no. Marek files that away. If Tiber voluntarily entered the retention system but does not remember doing it, then something happened to his soul after storage. Something removed information. Maybe deliberately. Marek looks back at the sealed vessel. The remnant system preserves expertise, yet Tiber arrives incomplete. That means preservation has a cost. Or someone altered the contents afterward. A new question, a dangerous one. Marek starts repacking the records. Tiber finally looks at him. What are you doing? Changing the plan. The champion's gaze sharpens. Good, he understands. Marek no longer needs to learn why he accidentally summoned Tiber. That part is obvious now. His failed circle sits above a dormant retention network. The fake battlefield bone probably contributes almost nothing. The Academy's old infrastructure does the real work. Marek's weak mana does not overpower the system. It slips under whatever modern safeguards suppress it. A stronger necromancer might force a normal spirit through the intended ritual. Marek, embarrassingly underpowered, gives the ancient network too little interference to ignore its original function. Weakness creates compatibility. That is almost funny. Almost. The second part is more important. Tiber is not bound because Marek summoned him incorrectly. Tiber is bound because Marek accidentally reactivates an older mentoring protocol. That explains why ordinary dismissal fails. The bond is not a summon tether. It is an assignment. Marek looks at Tiber. The champion looks offended by the universe. So you are officially my instructor. No. The system disagrees. There is no system. Marek points toward the glowing registry. Tiber looks down, then back up. Bad system. There it is. Marek almost smiles. The skeletal rat suddenly scratches at his sleeve. He takes it out. The silver line along its spine is glowing violently. Tiber notices. The construct jumps onto the registry. Before Marek can stop it, the rat places one tiny paw on the outer ring. The floor pulses. Marek's vision changes. Not like the shared perception during the duel. Much stronger. For one heartbeat, every dead thing in the archive becomes visible as structure. The preserved hand on the far table. Bone fragments inside storage boxes. Old funerary insects beneath the floor. Each one carries faint channels where movement could be written, not commanded, written. Like muscle memory without muscles. Then another layer appears, fainter, older, residue. Every corpse ever exposed to skilled command seems to retain microscopic patterns. Stance, reflex, repetition. The traces are normally too weak to matter, but Tiber's presence amplifies them. Marek sees what modern necromancy forgot. A corpse does not only carry anatomy, it can carry discipline. The realization hits hard. Not emotion, scale. If Marek can teach movement habits to a rat in several nights, then an old battlefield corpse might already contain decades of physical patterns. He would not need to command everything. He would need to recover what the body once knew. The perception disappears. Marek catches the edge of the table. Tiber's outline flashes almost completely solid. For a single second, the champion's armored hand closes around Marek's shoulder. Actually closes. Physical contact. Both of them freeze. Then Tiber's hand passes through again. Silence. The companion bond is changed. Not fully, not safely, but undeniably. Tiber looks at his hand. Marek looks at the rat. The little construct now carries 7 faint silver marks along its spine. Complete pattern. No evolution yet. But preparation has crossed another threshold. Tiber crouches beside it. The old champion is quiet for a long moment. Then he taps 2 fingers against the air above its skull. The rat straightens. Marek notices the motion. It mirrors Tiber's old battlefield salute. Interesting, very interesting. Before either can investigate further, the archive lock turns. Marek moves instantly. Registry covered. Bronze plate wrapped. Journals return to plausible positions. The rat disappears up his sleeve. Tiber fades beside the eastern shelves. The door opens. Professor Isabel enters. She stops, looks around, then at Marek. Still here. Apparently, her eyes drift toward the table. Marek has moved it back over the seal, almost perfectly. Almost. One leg sits half an inch off its original dust mark. Isabel notices. Of course she does. She says nothing. That is much worse. Your Ember authorization does not include unsupervised night access. Marek looks toward the corridor. It was unlocked. Tiber mutters. Poor defense. Isabel walks inside. She takes one journal from the shelf. Not randomly. Corin veils. She places it on the table. Go back to your dormitory. Marek studies her. No accusation. No question. Still dangerous. He leaves. Tiber follows. The moment the door closes, Professor Isabel remains alone inside. Marek cannot see what happens next, but the story does. Isabel waits until his footsteps vanish. Then she moves the table. The registry seal is still faintly warm. Her expression changes. Not surprise, recognition. She removes a small black key from beneath her collar. 7 silver lines run along its shaft. She presses it against the floor. A hidden panel opens. Inside rests a narrow communication slate. Only one name appears. Warden Edric Sorn. Isabel writes 6 words. Wren's chamber has answered a student. The message disappears. Far above Blackmere's lower halls, inside the rector's western tower, a man stops signing academy budgets. Edric Sorn is not the rector. He is worse. Officially, he serves as Blackmere's director of historical assets. A boring title, useful camouflage. In practice, he controls every sealed pre-academy chamber beneath the burial hill. Behind his desk hangs no portrait, only a map. 47 small marks circle the academy foundations. 36 are black, 11 remain silver. Tiber Wren's mark has just turned white. Sorn watches it for several seconds. Then he opens a locked drawer. Inside sit student files. He removes Marek Voss, weak affinity, low output, repeated practical failures, no noble sponsorship, no registered inherited technique. Exactly the kind of student nobody monitors closely. Sorn reads the file again, then writes one instruction. Observe, not detain, not question. Not yet, because someone capable of waking a retained champion could be a threat. or something far more valuable? Back beneath the academy, Marek knows none of this. But he does know Professor Isabel recognized the disturbed seal. That changes the calculation again. Someone alive understands the remnant hall, possibly several people. So Marek makes 3 decisions before reaching his dormitory. He stops searching official archives. He stops testing the retention seal directly, and he never demonstrates the shared perception where anyone can measure it. Tiber drifts beside him. Reasonable. Marek glances over. That sounded like praise. It was not. Good. The champion looks almost amused. They reach the old ossuary instead of the dormitory. Of course they do. Training never stops just because an ancient conspiracy has been discovered, apparently. Marek places the broken combat soldier in the center of the room. Tonight, however, he does not animate it immediately. He studies the old scratches on its joints, training damage, repeated attack patterns. Previous owners, tiny traces, nothing close to the ancient battlefield corpses below. But enough for a test. Marek places one hand on the skull. Tiber stands opposite him. What are you attempting? Memory. Tiber's expression hardens. Corpses do not remember. Not minds. Marek adjusts the tether. Movement. That gets the champion's attention. Our necromancer sends the smallest possible pulse into the soldier. No command to attack. No command to stand. Only one instruction. Repeat. The corpse rises, slowly. Its right arm lifts. The motion is awkward. Then it performs a basic academy thrust. Once. Again. Again. Nobody commands the angle. The body follows the physical pattern engraved through hundreds of previous repetitions. Tiber's eyes widen slightly. Marek reduces mana. The soldier continues. There. A completely different path. He no longer needs to build every summon from nothing. He can recover habits, refine them, then use Tiber's battlefield knowledge to correct what remains. A modern necromancer raises bodies. Marek may be able to raise training. That difference is massive. Tiber circles the soldier. His old irritation returns. Good. Normal. The thrust is dreadful. Marek looks at him. Can you fix it? Tiber smiles. That dangerous smile again. Obviously. For the next hour, history's greatest champion teaches a corpse how to unlearn 6 centuries of bad technique. Marek watches, adjusts, records. The soldier's stance changes. First the feet, then the hips, then the shoulder. Each correction requires less mana than the last because the body begins retaining the new pattern. Not intelligence, not life, discipline. Exactly as the old remnant hall intended. By the end of the session, Marek gives one command, guard. The corpse enters a stance Tiber recognizes. Not modern academy form, Western trench guard. Tiber's own era, the champion goes silent. Marek notices immediately. The dead legend steps closer to the soldier. For a moment, irritation drains from his face. He sees something old, something familiar, maybe soldiers he trained, maybe people he failed to save. Marek does not ask. Instead, he hands the corpse a practice spear. Tiber looks at him. Marek says only one word. Again. The champion's expression settles. Then he nods. Again. Above them, Edric Sorn begins moving quietly through Blackmere's records. Below them, 11 retained souls remain inside sealed chambers. And somewhere behind the northern wall, one of those chambers has started responding to the same rhythm as Marek's training soldier. A slow pulse. Guard. Reset. Guard. Reset. Someone else beneath Blackmere remembers the stance. And for the first time in centuries, that memory is waking up. Edric Sorn waits exactly 4 days before making his first move. That alone tells Marek something important. A frightened man would act immediately. A greedy man would rush to claim whatever valuable thing just woke beneath Blackmere. Sorn does neither. He watches. He measures. Then he changes the rules of an examination that supposedly has nothing to do with Marek. The announcement arrives during morning lecture. Professor Isabel places a black notice slate on the desk. Lower division field assessment has been moved forward. Groans spread through the room. Marek looks up. Tiber stops criticizing the student's posture 2 seats ahead. That is how serious this is. Isabel continues. First and second year combat candidates will enter the Hollow Galleries tomorrow morning. Upper division observers will accompany each team. The Hollow Galleries, Blackmere's controlled underground training zone. Students call it a dungeon because that sounds more impressive. In reality, the galleries are several abandoned burial tunnels beneath the eastern hill where the academy keeps low-grade undead for practical exercises. Safe enough for students, dangerous enough that instructors can pretend tuition buys adventure. Ronan immediately raises his hand. The assessment was scheduled next month. Yes. Why was it changed? Professor Isabel's expression does not move. Administrative decision. Tiber leans beside Marek. There is your enemy. Marek keeps writing. That may be dramatic. It is also probably correct. An administrative decision means Sorn can place Marek underground without openly isolating him. Not arrest, not interrogation. Observation under stress. Exactly what Marek would do in Sorn's position. That is annoying. Tiber seems almost proud of the unseen administrator. At least someone in this academy understands reconnaissance. Marek writes one sentence in the margin of his notes. Expected objective. Measure unusual summoning response. Then a second. Actual objective. Appear ordinary. Tiber reads it. Wrong. Marek pauses. The champion points at the second line. If someone already suspects you are extraordinary, appearing ordinary becomes suspicious. Marek looks at him. Tiber folds his arms. Give them something. That makes sense. Not the truth. A controlled explanation. Movement optimization, residual discipline, a moderately unusual technique built from old archived methods. Enough to satisfy curiosity, not enough to expose the remnant hall. Marek adds a third sentence. Show the wrong secret. Tiber nods. Better. That night, the old ossuary becomes a workshop. The skeletal rat stands on the central stone. Its body barely resembles the creature Marek originally summoned. The missing hind leg remains longer than the others. Thin bronze wire now reinforces the spine. 3 ribs have been replaced with narrow pieces from a crow frame because Marek ran out of matching bones and refuses to pay academy prices. Tiber hates the result. Visually, functionally, he has stopped complaining. Mostly, the 7 silver marks along the rat's spine glow whenever Marek activates its trained movement structure. No one knows what they mean, not even Tiber. That makes them dangerous. So Marek covers them. He mixes bone dust with sealing wax and paints a thin black layer across each vertebra. The glow disappears beneath the coating. Tiber watches. Cowardice again. Camouflage. Cowardice with vocabulary. Marek continues working. Beside the rat stands the repaired training soldier. Its academy standard posture is gone. Tiber has rebuilt the corpse's movement habits over 4 nights. Feet closer. Weight forward. Spear held lower. No exaggerated swings. No wasted rotation. The result looks less impressive than a modern combat skeleton. It is also twice as difficult to hit. Marek gives one command. Advance. The soldier moves. Not as a puppet. As something trained, one step flows into the next. The spear shifts automatically when the left shoulder passes a marked line. The body remembers the routine because Marek has written the sequence into its residual command structure through repetition. Mana drain remains embarrassingly low, exactly what he needs. But tomorrow's assessment is not the real concern. The rat is. Its silver markings have changed again. When Marek orders it through an obstacle course, the tiny construct no longer simply follows trained patterns. It selects between them. Narrow gap, lower spine. Vertical surface, extended rear limb. Incoming strike, detach whichever bone is trapped and preserve the core frame. Still not intelligence, still not independent decision-making, more like a collection of conditional reflexes. But the number of reflexes keeps increasing. Tiber crouches beside it. Run the shield drill. Marek places 3 wooden boards around the rat, one opening, then he animates the soldier. Attack command. The spear comes down. The rat does not retreat through the obvious opening. It climbs the nearest board, uses the spear shaft as a bridge, launches onto the soldier's shoulder, then stops at the command spike. Tiber's eyes narrow. That was new. Marek nods. He did not teach that exact sequence. He taught each piece separately. The rat combined them. Preparation, not evolution, but close enough that Marek starts taking precautions. He places one finger against its skull. The tether feels different, denser, structured, almost layered. One layer connects to Marek. Another seems to respond to Tiber. That should not be possible. The champion is not its necromancer. He cannot supply mana. He cannot directly command anything. Yet the rat reacts faster when Tiber demonstrates a pattern. Marek looks up. Try something. Tiber raises an eyebrow. Specific. The champion moves in front of the construct. He places one foot forward, turns his shoulders, then performs a quick battlefield feint with an imaginary blade. The rat watches with empty sockets. Nothing happens. Tiber sighs. Obviously. Marek keeps the tether open. Again. Tiber repeats it. The rat shifts one foreleg. Small, almost nothing, but it matches the champion's weight change. Both men freeze. Tiber performs the feint a third time. The skeletal rat mirrors the first half of the motion. Poorly, absurdly, but unmistakably. Marek's pulse accelerates. The construct is learning from Tiber without Marek translating every movement into necromantic instructions. That is new and dangerous. The silver marks beneath the wax begin heating. Tiber immediately stops. The rat goes still. Marek cuts the training tether down to minimum maintenance. The heat fades. Neither speaks for several seconds. Then Tiber says, "Do not show anyone that." Marek gives him a flat look. "Useful advice. I am capable of it." "Rarely." Tiber almost smiles. Then a soft sound comes from beneath the floor. Guard. Reset. Guard. Reset. The distant retained chamber is still answering their training rhythm. It has been doing that for 2 nights. Always when the soldier practices Tiber's Western stance, Marek has not opened the passage. Not yet. Soren's attention changes the calculation. Investigation stops until Marek understands who controls the lower chambers. That is the recalibration. The mystery can wait. Living enemies usually have schedules. The dead are patient. Apparently, morning comes cold and wet. 32 students gather at the eastern descent. Second years wear combat coats. First years carry academy lanterns and emergency seals. Upper division observers stand near the gate. Celine Arkwright is among them. So is Garrick. Ronan gets placed in another team. That leaves Marek with 3 people he barely knows. Nessa Pell, a spirit medic, Oren Cade, bone shield specialist, and a nervous first year named Fen who controls 2 corpse hounds. Tiber inspects them. Medic stands correctly. Marek suppresses his surprise. 2 compliments in 1 week. The modern age is healing. Shield boy locks his knees. Normality restored. And the hound handler is already dead. Marek glances toward Fen. The boy is pale, hands shaking. Not literally. Give it time. Celine walks toward their group. She carries no summon, only a narrow iron whistle. I'm observing this team. That is not random. Marek knew it would not be. Professor Isabel stands near the descent mechanism. Edric Sorn is nowhere visible. Of course. The best place to watch an experiment is rarely beside the cage. The eastern gate opens. Cold air rises. The hollow galleries wait below. Their team descends first. Stone stairs spiral through layers of old burial tunnels. Modern reinforcement plates cover most walls. Academy runes mark safe routes in blue. Red markings indicate sealed zones. Tiber becomes quieter with every level. He recognizes the architecture. Not all of it. Enough. That arch was a supply junction. Marek glances at a blocked side tunnel. Blackmere labels it Storage Cavity 8. Tiber keeps moving. That chamber held cavalry dead. Now labeled Material Processing. Same trick again. Different names covering old functions. Marek memorizes everything. Celine notices him looking around. First time here? Yes. Most first years look at the monsters. Marek looks ahead. 2 shambling corpses wander behind a containment line. Those are easier. Celine says nothing. Another observer. Good. The team reaches the first objective chamber. 6 numbered plaques hang from the far wall. Retrieve 1. Return without losing a summon. Simple. Fen sends his hounds ahead. Oren raises 2 bone shields. Nessa maintains a healing spirit behind them. Marek releases the rat. One of Fen's hounds looks down at it. The rat looks back. Tiber folds his arms. Kill it. Marek almost laughs. No. The assessment begins. The first chamber goes smoothly. 3 low-grade corpses. 1 crawling ghoul. Nothing serious. Oren blocks. Fen attacks. Nessa stabilizes a bitten hound. Marek lets the rat scout. Useful. Unremarkable. Exactly right. Then they enter the second corridor. Tiber stops. Marek feels the change before hearing anything. The champion looks toward the wall. That was not here. A new passage has been opened. Academy reinforcement surrounds the entrance. Fresh work. Recent. Celine notices Marek slowing. Problem? No. A bell rings somewhere behind them. 1 toll. Then another team screams. The Academy exercise has begun escalating. Still controlled. Probably. Their route marker shifts from blue to yellow. A directive appears on the wall. Advance to Chamber 9. Celine reads it. Her expression tightens slightly. That's unusual. Marek looks at her. Why? First years normally stop at 6. There. Sorn's test. Tiber smiles without humor. Give them something. Marek touches the rat tether. Ready. Chamber 9 sits beyond 2 collapsed burial halls. The ceiling rises dramatically. Old support pillars divide the space into narrow lanes. 6 undead stand inside. 4 soldiers. 1 crawler, and 1 massive corpse wearing rusted plate. Oren curses. That's a grave knight. Not a true knight, great undead. Blackmere uses the name loosely, still dangerous. The thing carries a 2-handed execution blade. Fen's face drains. Celine reaches for her whistle. Marek watches her. She does not blow it. Observation continues. The grave knight charges. Fast. Far too fast for its size. Oren raises both shields. Impact. 1 shatters. Stage 1. Pressure. The second blow sends Oren backward. Nessa's healing spirit catches him before he hits the wall. Fen sends both hounds forward. 1 gets kicked aside. The other bites the knight's arm. Its jaw breaks. Tiber watches the enemy. Left knee. Marek sees it. Not weakness, rhythm. The knight rotates around the left knee every time it uses the heavy sword. Tiber points toward the shoulders. Old execution frame. Marek understands. This corpse has trained residual behavior already, not Marek's work. Old muscle discipline preserved beneath modern commands. That means someone selected it deliberately. Soren wants to see whether Marek notices. Fine, he will notice publicly. Just not correctly. Marek sends the rat. The little skeleton darts between the knight's feet. Celine watches. The grave knight swings downward. Rat left. Miss, second attack. Rat climbs the blade. That gets everyone's attention. Fen actually forgets to command his surviving hound. Marek gives 3 visible finger signals. Unnecessary. Useful for deception. Let observers believe the rat is following direct micro-commands. The construct reaches the knight's shoulder. Tiber's voice sharpens. Not the spike. Marek had already noticed. Breaking the command spike would repeat Garrick's match too closely. He needs another explanation. Hip strap. The rat drops. Bites through a leather reinforcement band behind the plate. The knight turns. Its damaged left side balance shifts. Now the huge corpse leans 3 degrees farther than intended. Tiny difference. Enough. Marek calls to Oren. Right pillar. Oren looks confused. Move. Something in Marek's voice works. The shield specialist obeys. Marek retreats behind the opposite pillar. The grave knight charges. Heavy blade raised. Tiber counts. 3. Marek waits. 2. The knight enters the narrow lane. 1. Marek moves. The execution blade crashes into stone. The compromised hip turns. Left knee carries too much force. Bone breaks. The knight falls sideways. Directly into the pillar, its own armor traps the sword arm. Fen's hound attacks. Oren slams the remaining shield into its neck. Nessa's spirit binds the exposed command spike with healing thread. The grave knight stops. Silence. Marek has shown something. Tactical observation. Movement analysis. Residual mechanics. Exactly the wrong secret. Celine looks at him. You knew how it would fall. Marek points toward the broken leather strap. Balance. True. Incomplete. Safe. The rat sits on the knight's chest. One black wax coating cracks along its spine. Silver leaks through. Marek immediately calls it back. Too late. Celine sees the flash. Her eyes narrow. Before she can ask, something massive shakes the chamber. Dust falls. One corpse bell rings somewhere far below, not the academy bell. Older. Tiber's entire spirit jerks. Marek feels the mentoring tether pull hard enough to hurt. The champion turns east, toward solid stone. Then another ancient bell rings. Tiber whispers a name. Brannock. Marek looks at him. The champion's face has gone pale even by ghost standards. A third bell answers. Then a voice rolls through the wall, not audible to anyone else. Marek hears it through Tiber, a rough old voice. Ren? Tiber takes 1 step toward the stone. The academy chamber disappears from his attention. For the first time, Marek sees the champion lose discipline completely. Tiber. No response. The spirit moves toward the wall. His tether stretches. Pain slices behind Marek's eyes. He grabs the connection instinctively. Stop. Not through words. Through necromancy. Tiber freezes. The champion turns. Shock replaces everything else. Marek feels it too. He just commanded him. Not fully. Not like a summon. More like he pulled on the mentoring assignment itself. Impossible. And far too dangerous to explore here. Marek releases the pressure immediately. Tiber returns. His expression is furious. Not at Marek. At himself. The ancient bell stops. Celine is staring. What happened? Marek wipes blood from beneath his nose. The tether strain has burst something. Too many simultaneous commands. Again, wrong secret. Again, plausible. Celine looks unconvinced. Then, her whistle receives a red pulse. Every observer's expression changes. Assessment terminated. Oren exhales. Fen nearly collapses with relief, but Celine is looking at the wall where the old voice came from. She heard nothing. Still, she knows something happened. Above ground, Edric Sorn receives the same red signal. He stands inside a sealed monitoring room with Professor Isabel. 11 silver markers glow across a foundation map. Yesterday, only 1 was active. Now 2 are white. Tiber Ren. And another name, Brannock Vey. Sorn's face finally loses its patience. This is spreading. Isabel looks toward the map. No. Sorn glances at her. The chambers are answering one another. She remains calm. That isn't spreading. What would you call it? Professor Isabel looks at Marek's observation slate. Then at the second awakened marker. Recognition. Sorn closes the slate. Move the containment schedule forward. Isabel's eyes harden. You said observe. I have observed. He's a student. He is a key standing on top of 47 locks. Sorn touches Tiber's marker. The white light reflects across his face. And I intend to learn which doors he can open before someone else does. Back in the hollow galleries, Marek feels the pressure change even without knowing the conversation. The exercise ends early. Instructors arrive too quickly. Routes close. Students are escorted upward. Something has accelerated. Tiber remains silent until they reach the abandoned ossuary that evening. Then he speaks. Brannick Vey. Marek sets the skeletal rat on the table. Who? My shield captain. Not a legendary name. Not in modern history. Interesting. He died before you? Tiber nods. At Rusk Field. Was he retained? I didn't know. That answer hurts him. Marek can tell. Tiber hides it poorly by becoming angry at nearby furniture. He should have been buried. Marek does not offer comfort. Tiber would probably insult it. Instead, he places the old combat soldier in position, training. Normality through action. The champion understands. He takes his place opposite the corpse, then stops, looks at the skeletal rat. The little construct is staring at him. Tiber performs the Western Guard. No command from Marek. The rat mirrors the stance immediately. Better than yesterday. Much better. Then the training soldier does the same. Marek has not ordered either one. The mentoring bond pulses. Silver light burns through the wax covering the rat's spine. 7 marks. Then an 8th line begins, forming across its skull. Evolution approaching. Tiber watches it. His irritation gives way to something almost solemn. Again, he changes stance. The rat follows. The soldier follows. Marek feels the connection between all 4 of them settle into a strange new architecture. Necromancer, champion, construct, corpse, not command and obedience, instruction and retention. A training chain, a school built between the living and the dead. Marek reduces his mana until the soldier should collapse. It does not. The rat should stop. It does not. Tiber continues demonstrating. They continue learning. That is the preparation. And now Marek finally understands why the Remnant Hall recognizes him. Not because he is strong enough to command ancient champions. Exactly the opposite. His mana is too weak to dominate them, so the old system is doing what it was originally built to do. Teach through them. A small metallic click comes from the northern wall. The hidden passage. Marek and Tiber both turn. One stone has moved inward, barely an inch. Not open. Ready. Somewhere beneath it, Brannick Vey knocks once. Tiber looks toward the sound. Marek looks at the sealed doorway. Neither approaches. Not tonight. Because something else has become obvious. Sorn is moving. The retained souls are waking. And whatever mechanism has been sleeping beneath Blackmere for 6 centuries has just stopped waiting for permission. Marek extinguishes the ossuary lamps one by one. Then he covers the silver marks on the rat again, locks the bronze plate inside his component case, and draws a new route through Blackmere's lower foundations on the back of an ordinary class schedule. Tiber watches. What changes? Marek marks 3 exits, 2 archive routes, 1 concealed training chamber, then circles the northern passage. Everything. The champion studies the map. This time, he does not criticize a single line. Far above them, Edric Sorn signs an order granting the Historical Assets Directorate temporary authority over every sealed level beneath Blackmere. 3 instructors receive new assignments before midnight. 2 archive rooms are closed. The hollow galleries are placed under maintenance, and lower archive 3 gets a new lock Marek has never seen. The machine is moving now. Sorn thinks he is tightening control. Marek folds the class schedule and slips it into his sleeve. Our necromancer knows better. Control becomes most fragile exactly when everyone starts pulling on it at once. The skeletal rat climbs onto his shoulder. Beneath its blackened vertebrae, the 8th silver mark finishes drawing itself. Tiber notices. His eyes narrow. Marek opens the ossuary door. No vow, no speech. He simply steps into the corridor and begins changing the route home. The next phase has already started. By sunrise, Blackmere has changed without admitting that anything changed at all. No alarm bells. No public announcement. No frightened professors running through the halls. Just locks. New ones. Lower Archive 3 is sealed behind a black iron door carrying the crest of historical assets. The eastern stairwell now requires faculty authorization. 2 corridors near the hollow galleries have suddenly become structurally unstable, and 3 gray-robed attendants Marek has never seen before begin standing near the lower dormitories pretending not to watch anyone. Tiber takes one look at them. Spies. Marek keeps walking. Observers. Spies with salaries. Fair. The skeletal rat rests inside his sleeve. Its 8th silver mark has stopped glowing. For now, that is useful. Marek enters morning lecture looking exactly as he did a week ago. Tired. Average. Slightly underfed. The kind of student nobody should build a containment policy around. Ronan is already seated. Garrick stands near the rear wall. That is unusual. Second years do not attend first-year theory. Marek takes his place. Tiber drifts through the desk beside him. Something is happening. Obviously. Professor Isabel enters 2 minutes late. She carries no notes. Her left shoulder is more rigid than usual. Tiber notices immediately. Pain is worse. Marek notices something else. No black key beneath her collar. Gone. Taken? Hidden? Either matters. Isabel looks over the class. Practical curriculum is suspended for 3 days. Confusion spreads. Ronan's eyes sharpen. Marek remains still. All lower division summoning exercises are restricted to supervised halls. There it is. Personal constructs must be registered by dusk. There it is again. The rat shifts inside Marek's sleeve. Tiber turns toward him. They want the creature. Probably. Then give them another. Marek almost smiles. Show the wrong secret. Again. Professor Isabel continues. Failure to register an active construct will result in disciplinary seizure. The room fills with complaints. Most students own 1 or 2 practice summons. Nothing special. To them, the rule feels bureaucratic. To Marek, it feels surgical. Sorn cannot openly ask for the rat without revealing that he knows something unusual about it. So he orders everyone to register everything. Clean. Efficient. Annoying. The lecture ends early. Marek goes directly to the component hall. Not the registration office. Tiber follows. Replacement? Yes. Make it convincing. Marek collects a rat skeleton from the public bin. Common frame, correct size, similar skull fracture. Then he spends lunch building the most aggressively mediocre construct of his life. Slight limp, poor turning radius, standard command spike, no residual discipline, no silver marks. Tiber watches with increasing disgust. You are wasting talent. That is the point. Still offensive. Marek stains the bones with old wax, then places the fake rat inside a carrying box. The real one stays beneath his coat. At dusk, he joins the registration line. Nearly 60 students wait outside the supervised hall. Historical assets personnel handle the process instead of ordinary instructors. Interesting, each construct gets placed inside a measuring circle. Mana signature recorded. Command architecture inspected. Anchor marked. Then released. Ronan goes ahead of him. 2 bone ravens. Standard. Garrick registers 1 armored skeleton. The second year looks directly at Marek's box. No expression. Marek reaches the table. A gray-robed examiner opens the lid. The fake rat sits inside. The examiner looks disappointed. Good. Animate it. Marek does. The rat stands badly. Tiber looks away. Apparently, even witnessing intentional incompetence violates his religion. Walk. The rat walks. Trips once. Excellent. Turn. Wide turn. Mana leak. Perfectly ordinary. The examiner checks his slate. Same construct used in the hollow galleries? Marek answers without hesitation. Rebuilt after damage. The man examines the replacement leg. Marek intentionally used a longer hind bone, just like the original. Enough visual similarity, not enough functional similarity. The examiner writes something, then presses a brass sensor against the rat's spine. Nothing. No silver response. No ancient resonance. His disappointment deepens. Registered. Marek closes the box. Tiber waits until they are halfway down the corridor. Painful. It worked. Painfully. Marek slips into an unused stairwell, then opens his coat. The real rat climbs onto his shoulder. Tiber inspects it like a commander confirming a soldier survived a massacre. The 8th mark remains hidden beneath black wax. But the tether feels stronger, more organized, and beneath that organization, something keeps pulling north, toward the sealed passage. Brannock. Marek resists it. Not yet. That night, the Historical Assets Directorate makes its second move. A notice appears on every lower division board. Special demonstration retained combat theory. Attendance mandatory for selected students. Marek's name is first. Ronan's second. Garrick's third. Celine's fourth. Tiber reads the notice, then laughs, not happily. They finally stop pretending. Marek studies the wording. Retained combat theory, not residual. Retained, very deliberate. Sorn is testing language now. Seeing who reacts, Marek folds the notice. Tomorrow's demonstration takes place in the Grand Mortuary Hall. That matters. Unlike the basement classrooms, the Grand Hall can hold hundreds. Faculty, students, guild representatives, noble sponsors. If Sorn wants secrecy, this is an odd location. Unless secrecy is no longer the goal, Tiber reaches the same conclusion. He wants witnesses. Marek nods. A public demonstration creates legitimacy. Whatever Sorn plans to reveal will become Academy doctrine the moment enough important people see it. That means the directorate has moved beyond observation. It wants ownership. The next afternoon, every upper balcony is full. Marek enters the Grand Mortuary Hall with the selected students. The chamber is enormous. Black pillars rise beneath a vaulted ceiling painted with scenes from necromantic history, modern history, which after the last week feels increasingly fictional. At the center stands Edric Sorn, first time Marek sees him in person. Mid-50s, gray hair, plain black coat, no visible wand, no ceremonial jewelry. The kind of man who understands that authority becomes more intimidating when it stops decorating itself. Tiber studies him. Administrator. Marek almost asks how he knows, then remembers. Posture. Eyes. Where Sorn positions himself relative to exits, the champion reads people like fortifications. Sorn raises one hand. The hall quiets. For 3 centuries, Blackmere has taught that a corpse must be commanded. Marek feels Tiber go still. Sorn continues. Today that doctrine changes. There it is. Not a test anymore, a declaration. 2 attendants roll a covered frame into the center. The cloth comes off. An old military corpse stands beneath. Not academy-made, not reconstructed, original bones reinforced with black metal. The posture is Western, Tiber's era. Marek recognizes it immediately. So does Garrick. His eyes narrow. Celine shifts forward. Sorn walks around the corpse. Recent archival work has recovered pre-standardization principles of retained motor discipline. Recent archival work. Interesting choice of lie. Marek stays blank. Sorn demonstrates. 1 command. Advance. The corpse steps forward. Efficient. 1 command. Guard. It enters a preserved stance. A murmur spreads through the hall. Faculty members lean toward one another. Guild representatives start taking notes. Tiber's expression becomes murderous. He stole it. Not exactly. Sorn already knew the remnant hall existed, but Marek's awakening may have shown him the system could be reactivated. Now he is moving first. Claim the discovery. Control the narrative. Turn ancient knowledge into institutional property before Marek can understand it. Brutally effective. Sorn gestures. Volunteers. No one moves. Then his eyes find Marek. Of course. Voss. Hundreds of faces turn. Marek steps forward. Tiber comes with him. Sorn's gaze drops briefly toward Marek's sleeve. Interesting. He knows about the rat. Or suspects. Your recent practical work shows unusual interest in command efficiency. Marek says nothing. Demonstrate your construct. There. Public exposure. Controlled. Witnessed. Marek removes the registered fake rat. Tiber looks offended all over again. Sorn watches. Marek activates it. The rat limps forward. A few students laugh. Ronan does not. Garrick definitely does not. Sorn's expression remains polite. Use your optimized structure. Marek pauses. Too much refusal looks suspicious. Too much performance gives Sorn data. So Marek improves the fake. A little. He changes the hip weighting, straightens the spine, reduces mana. The rat's movement becomes smoother, noticeably. Nothing miraculous. Sorn studies it. Better. Marek feels the trap tighten. Sorn points toward the military corpse. Now compare. The old frame moves. Far cleaner, far more efficient. On purpose. Sorn wants the hall to see Marek's method as a primitive version of directorate research. That steals the threat. If Marek later displays something unusual, Sorn can claim it derives from retained combat theory, a cage made from attribution. Tiber understands. Let him. Marek almost looks over. Tiber's voice is calm. He is building a road. The champion watches Sorn. Roads work both ways. Interesting. Marek lowers his output even further. The fake rat slows. Sorn's corpse performs 3 battlefield maneuvers. Students react. Guild sponsors whisper. The demonstration succeeds, exactly as Sorn intends. Then something goes wrong. Not for Marek, for Sorn. The corpse executes Western Guard. Tiber stiffens. The real rat beneath Marek's coat reacts. The hidden silver marks heat. Marek immediately suppresses the tether. Too late. The old military corpse stops. Sorn frowns. No command changed. The corpse turns its skull. Toward Marek. The entire hall goes silent. Sorn issues a reset command. Nothing. Again. The corpse remains facing Marek. Then, slowly, it lowers its weapon. Not submission. Recognition. Tiber's face changes. I know that stance. Marek keeps breathing evenly. The corpse touches one fist to its chest, 3 fingers outward. Old battlefield salute. The real rat mirrors it beneath Marek's coat. Marek feels the training chain flare. Necromancer. Champion. Construct. Corpse. The same architecture from the ossuary. Only now it has reached something Sorn controls. That is bad. Very bad. Sorn's pleasant expression disappears. He sends a full command pulse. The corpse jerks. Its head snaps forward. The salute breaks. Control returns. Noise explodes through the hall. Students think they witnessed an old residual habit. Faculty members start arguing. Sorn ends the demonstration immediately. Muscle retention artifact. Clean explanation. Fast. Almost believable. Marek admires the recovery. Tiber does too. Dangerous man. Yes. Afterward, nobody allows Marek to leave. Not immediately. Sorn approaches him near the preparation chamber. No guards. No obvious threat, which makes the conversation worse. Interesting reaction. Marek keeps his face neutral. From the corpse? From you. There it is. Marek gives him nothing. Sorn smiles slightly. You did not appear surprised. I've been reading old movement journals. True. Professor Isabel's archive. Also true. Sorn watches him for a long moment, then says, those archives are restricted now. I noticed. You are talented, Voss. Tiber snorts. A week ago, nobody agreed. Sorn continues. Poorly educated talent is still talent. That is deliberate. An offer wrapped in insult. Marek waits. The directorate can provide access to material unavailable to ordinary students. There, recruitment. Not containment, yet, what would you want? Sorn's smile deepens. Curiosity. Lie. Tiber whispers. He wants obedience. Marek already knows. Sorn produces a narrow silver token. 7 lines are engraved across it. Exactly the remnant symbol. Marek does not touch it. Good. Sorn notices. Even better. Think about it. He places the token on the table, then leaves. Tiber looks at the object. Trap. Yes. Useful trap. Also yes. Marek wraps the token in cloth without skin contact, takes it anyway, because refusing openly gives Sorn information too. That night, the academy tightens again. The directorate occupies the eastern stairwell. 2 more retained chambers become active on Sorn's foundation map. Not because he opens them, because they answer the demonstration corpse. Recognition spreads through old patterns. Brannick Vey remains awake. A second name appears. Mira Solvin. No modern history entry. Tiber knows her immediately. Field surgeon. His voice changes. Not grief. Something close. She could stitch a lung while writing. Marek looks at him. That seems medically irresponsible. She was excellent. High praise again. The champion turns toward the northern wall. 3 retained souls. 3 white marks. Marek understands the pressure now. Sorn will keep activating historical bodies. The old souls will keep recognizing Tiber's patterns. The more directorate experiments, the more the network wakes. And the more it wakes, the harder Marek becomes to hide. A self-tightening mechanism. Exactly the kind Tiber would call bad battlefield positioning. So they prepare. Not by opening chambers, not by summoning more legends, by making the current bond stronger. The real rat becomes the focus. Tiber teaches it 3 battlefield responses. Intercept. Withdraw. Protect. Marek encodes each one as layered residual discipline, not rigid commands, priorities. If Marek falls, protect the tether point. If Tiber destabilizes, return to Marek. If another retained soul contacts the chain, do not answer without permission. That last rule takes 6 attempts. The rat keeps turning toward the northern wall. Tiber crouches beside it. Again, Marek resets. The champion demonstrates withdrawal. The rat follows. Again, cleaner. Again, faster. Silver light burns beneath the wax. The 8th mark expands into a narrow ring around the skull. Not evolution, preparation, a boundary, a way to keep external signals from flooding the construct. Marek realizes what it is doing. The rat is learning discipline not only in movement, in attention. That is new. That could matter enormously later. Tiber notices the mechanism too. Selective response. Marek nods. The champion looks almost impressed. Modern necromancy could have learned this centuries ago. Apparently it was busy inventing worse food. Tiber slowly turns. Marek almost regrets it. Then the dead legend laughs once. Short. Rough. Gone immediately. First time. The moment passes. Training continues. Near midnight, Garrick appears at the ossuary door. Marek freezes. Tiber turns. The rat disappears behind a broken shield. Garrick holds up both hands. No instructor. That is reassuring. I know you're lying about the rat. Straight to it. Good. Marek says nothing. Garrick steps inside. The one you registered isn't the one that beat me. No denial. No confirmation. Garrick continues. I rebuilt the command sequence from our match. Interesting. I couldn't reproduce it. Expected. So I checked older Veil journals. Marek's attention sharpens. Garrick reaches into his coat. Tiber moves forward instinctively. Not that he can do much. Garrick removes a folded page. Original paper. Old. He places it on the table. Corin Vale's handwriting. Marek recognizes it. 1 sentence is underlined. Retained discipline requires a living instructor or an assigned remnant. Silence. Garrick looks at Marek. Then at the empty space beside him, not directly at Tiber, close. Very close. My ancestor wasn't the inventor. Marek says nothing. Garrick's jaw tightens. He copied someone. That matters, not because of guilt, because Garrick is recalibrating his own history. Just like Marek, a rival becoming something more complicated. Tiber studies him. Pulse confirmed. Apparently Garrick has graduated from trench casualty. Small victory. Why show me? Marek asks. Garrick looks toward the ossuary floor. Because historical assets emptied my family's private archive this afternoon. There. Sorn is collecting originals, erasing competing access. Whatever they showed today, they don't want anyone checking where it came from. Garrick retrieves another object. A thin fragment of bronze. 7 lines. Marek's expression nearly changes. Nearly. Garrick sees enough. You know it. Marek stays silent. That is answer enough. Garrick nods once. I thought so. He leaves the bronze fragment behind, then turns toward the door. Arkwright is watching Sorn. Celine, of course. She thinks tomorrow's advanced demonstration is a trap. Marek looks up. What demonstration? Garrick stops. That is when Marek knows something has changed, because for the first time, Garrick looks genuinely worried. They're opening a chamber. Tiber becomes completely still. Which one? Marek asks. Garrick looks back. Western Retention Vault. Tiber's face drains. Marek feels the bond twist. The champion already knows. Before Garrick says the name. Brannick Vey. Silence. The directorate is done testing corpses. Tomorrow, it intends to summon a retained soul directly. Tiber's shield captain. A man who has been dead for 6 centuries. A man whose chamber already answers Tiber's presence. And Sorn is going to perform the awakening in a room full of witnesses while pretending he controls the process. Garrick leaves. Marek closes the ossuary door. No one speaks for several seconds. Then the skeletal rat crawls back into the open. Tiber looks at it. At Marek. Then toward the northern wall. The champion's irritation is gone. The old commander has returned. Tomorrow they will lose control. Marek folds Corinvale's page. Puts the bronze fragment beside Sorn's silver token. 3 pieces. 3 access points. 3 different people pulling at the same dead system. He checks the rat's protective ring. Reinforces the soldier's western stance. Marks 2 emergency exits on the academy plan. Then places a practice spear beside the door. Not for Tiber. For himself. The old champion watches every movement. No criticism. No correction. Not tonight. The final funerary bell sounds above ground. Marek closes his component case. The rat climbs onto his shoulder. Its silver ring flashes once beneath the wax. Tiber turns toward the corridor. Our necromancer rises, takes the spear, and opens the ossuary door. Tomorrow, Blackmere plans to wake a legend. Unfortunately for Blackmere, one legend is already awake, and he is in a terrible mood. Blackmere makes one mistake before the demonstration even begins. They put Brannick Vey's chamber in the center of the room. Tiber notices first. Of course he does. The Western Retention Vault sits 6 levels below the Grand Mortuary Hall. Inside a chamber, the Academy officially classifies as a structural maintenance space. Nothing about it looks like maintenance. The walls are too thick. The floor is too carefully reinforced. And the 7-line seal carved beneath the central platform is large enough to swallow half a classroom. Students stand behind a brass containment rail. Faculty members occupy the raised gallery. Historical assets personnel form a ring around the chamber. Edric Sorn stands closest to the platform. Professor Isabel is 3 steps behind him. Celine waits near the emergency control station. Garrick stands beside Marek. Ronan has somehow been allowed in too. Tiber looks around. Terrible. Marek barely moves his lips. The room? The formation. That is more important. Tiber points toward the containment personnel. Every ward faces inward. Marek sees it. The directorate assumes the danger will come from Brannick. Nothing protects the chamber from external interference. Nothing protects the summoner. Nothing protects the observers from each other. Sorn has built a perfect cage around the wrong target. Tiber's mouth hardens. Amateurs. Marek looks toward the central seal. The real skeletal rat sits beneath his coat. The fake registered one remains in his dormitory. If anyone searches him now, the game changes immediately. So he does what weak people have always done around stronger institutions. He makes sure nobody thinks searching him is necessary. Shoulders slightly forward. Eyes down. Hands visible. Mediocre first-year posture. Tiber glances at him. Better. That word has changed. A week ago it meant less embarrassing. Now it means believable. Sorn raises his hand. Conversation dies. Today's procedure concerns one of Blackmere's oldest sealed assets. Asset. Tiber's face darkens. Marek says nothing. Sorn gestures toward the platform. Attendants remove a black covering. Beneath it stands a vertical stone sarcophagus. No body inside. only a circular depression filled with old silver glass. A name is carved across the base, Blackmere. No title, no history, nothing explaining that this man once stood beside Tiber Wren. Modern records do not even admit he existed, Sorn continues. Retained motor disciplines represent only a fraction of pre-standardization necromancy. That gets immediate attention. Faculty members lean forward. Guild representatives whisper. Marek watches the audience. Sorn is not simply demonstrating a discovery. He is selling a future. The directorate controls the knowledge. Blackmere validates it. Sponsors fund it. Students become the workforce. And history gets rewritten one more time with Sorn's name attached. Tiber understands the structure too. He intends to own the dead. Marek looks at the seal. Institutions like owning things. The champion gives him a sideways glance. That almost sounded cynical. Marek does not answer. Sorn begins the activation. 7 historical assets necromancers take positions around the circle. Each carries a silver command rod, not summoning tools. Assignment tools. Marek recognizes the architecture now. 1 operator opens the channel. 3. Stabilize identity. 2. Restrict movement. 1 controls dismissal. The remnant hall was built for cooperation. Sorn has rebuilt it as hierarchy. That is the flaw. Tiber sees it too. You cannot command a council through one throat. The first rune activates. Silver light spreads through the floor. Marek feels the reaction immediately, not through his own mana, through Tiber. The old champion's outline sharpens, armor details appear, broken cloak solidifies. His boots actually cast faint shadows now. The rat shifts beneath Marek's coat. He suppresses it. Wait. Second rune. The sarcophagus hums. Third. Something knocks from inside. Once. Tiber's jaw tightens. Fourth. The silver glass fills with mist. Fifth. A silhouette forms, broad, heavy, a shield strapped across one shoulder. Tiber stops breathing out of habit he no longer needs. The 6th rune activates. The figure gains a face. Brannick Vey looks older than Tiber. Thicker beard, broken nose, scar over one eye. His spectral armor carries dents instead of decoration. No heroic paintings preserve him, no statues, no holiday songs. Yet when he opens his eyes, history's greatest champion looks like the lesser figure in the room. Brannick stares forward. Sorn speaks. Retained entity. Identify. Tiber's expression becomes disgusted. Brannick says nothing. Sorn repeats the command. The dismissal operator tightens the outer ring. Brannick's spirit jerks. His eyes narrow. Then he speaks. Who commands? The voice is rough enough to scrape stone. Half the students flinch. Sorn remains calm. Director Edric Sorn, Historical Assets Directorate, Blackmere Academy. Brannick stares at him. No. Silence. Tiber almost smiles. Sorn's expression tightens. You are retained under Academy authority. Brannick looks around the chamber. At the walls, the lights, the uniforms, the brass rails, confusion appears. Then irritation. Then something worse. Where is Wren? Tiber takes one involuntary step forward. Marek catches the bond before it stretches. Not a command, a warning. Tiber stops. Brannick's head turns, not toward Tiber, toward Marek. Every person in the chamber notices. Sorn notices most. Marek feels the directorate's attention hit him like physical weight. Perfect. The trap is closing, just not the way Sorn expects. Sorn issues another order. Face forward. Brannick does not. The command rods flare. The retained soul shudders. Tiber's hands curl into fists. Marek stays still. Wait. Brannick looks directly at Marek, then at the space beside him. His damaged eye widens. Wren. Tiber answers before Marek can stop him. Brannick. Only Marek should hear Tiber. That has been true from the beginning. Not anymore. Brannick hears him. The entire retention network reacts. All 7 lines ignite. The rat's hidden markings burn hot. Marek's vision fractures into silver geometry. For one brutal second, he sees every connection in the room. Sorn's command rods, Brannick's retention chain, the emergency wards, Tiber's mentoring assignment, the rat, the old infrastructure beneath all of it, and dozens of dormant pathways spreading through Blackmere's foundations like veins. There, the deeper mechanism. Sorn is not awakening one retained soul. He is plugging a modern control system into an ancient network that still recognizes Tiber as a command authority. That is why Brannick turns toward Marek. Not because of Marek himself, because Tiber is assigned through him. The old network sees the pair as one active mentoring unit. Sorn's commands are secondary, temporary, foreign. Marek understands all of that in less than a heartbeat. Then the vision disappears. His knees nearly buckle. Tiber looks at him. You saw it. Marek gives one tiny nod. Sorn raises his command rod. Seal the entity. Wrong move. Every directorate necromancer pushes at once. 7 modern command streams slam into Brannock. The retained captain roars. The sarcophagus cracks. Professor Isabel steps forward. Director, continue. The central seal overloads. 1 ward bursts. Then another. The audience starts backing away. Celine reaches the emergency control. Garrett grabs Ronan by the shoulder and pulls him behind a pillar. Good. At least someone remembers survival. Brannock's spirit expands. Not stronger, less constrained. His shield materializes fully. Tiber goes completely still. That shield. Marek sees it. 3 deep cuts across the face. A broken iron rim. Tiber knows the object. Brannock raises it. The first command rod snaps. The entire room erupts. Historical assets personnel scramble. Faculty shout. The containment rail glows red. 3 bell strikes echo from the ceiling. 1, 2, 3. Immediate intervention. Too late. Stage 1. Take the hit. The chamber receives it instead of Marek. Brannock swings the shield once. A pressure wave throws 2 directorate necromancers across the floor. Sorn remains standing behind the inner ward, barely. His perfect public demonstration collapses in front of every witness he invited. That matters. The guild representatives see it, the faculty see it. The students see it. Sorn does not control what he claims to control. The road he built now runs directly back toward him. Tiber looks at Marek. Now. Not yet. Marek watches. Stage 2. Read. Brannock is not attacking randomly. Every strike targets a command rod. Every movement avoids students. Every time a directorate operator raises a binding sequence, Brannock interrupts that person specifically. He is dismantling control. Not escaping. Tiber sees it too. Still disciplined. Pride enters the old champion's voice. Small. Real. Brannock crushes the 4th command rod. The outer seal destabilizes. Sorn turns toward Isabel. Emergency dismissal. She does not move. Professor. Isabel looks at the cracked sarcophagus, then at Marek, then at Tiber's empty space. She cannot see him, but she knows. Marek finally understands her position. Not loyal to Sorn, not loyal to Marek, loyal to keeping the remnant hall from becoming a weapon again. That makes her useful. For now, Sorn reaches for the dismissal control himself. Tiber's voice cuts sharp. Do not let him. Marek sees why. The dismissal channel connects directly to every active retained marker below Blackmere. If Sorn floods it with force now, he might not simply collapse Brannock. He could send a suppression pulse through the entire network, Tiber included, possibly destroy identities, possibly damage whatever memories remain. Marek moves, publicly, finally. He pulls the practice spear from the emergency rack. Ronan stares. Since when do you use that? Tiber almost sounds offended. Poorly. Marek enters the containment zone. Celine turns. Voss! He ignores her. Sorn sees him. Get back. Marek keeps walking. Perfect. Everyone thinks he is approaching Brannock. He is not. He is approaching the floor. The central retention line. Stage 3. Ignition. Tiber guides him. 3 steps. Marek advances. Brannock swings. The shield passes close enough to throw wind through Marek's hair. Students shout. Tiber does not. Inside, Marek moves past the shield edge. Brannock sees him. Stops. Recognition again. Sorn's hand reaches the dismissal control. Marek plants the spear. Not into Brannock. Into the silver line connecting Sorn's control point to the sarcophagus. Metal strikes stone. The old network flares. Marek sends one pulse. Tiny. Precise. Exactly like interrupting Garrick's command branch. Same skill. Larger scale. The silver pathway breaks timing for half a second. That is enough. Sorn's dismissal command hits an empty phase. The feedback slams into his own control rod. It explodes. Sorn goes backward. Not dramatic, not unconscious. Just enough. Everyone sees it. Marek grabs the spear with both hands. Tiber stands opposite him. Again, the champion demonstrates Western Guard. Marek mirrors it. Brannock freezes. The skeletal rat tears out from beneath Marek's coat. Black wax cracks away. 8 silver marks blaze across its spine and skull. Gasps ripple through the chamber. So much for complete secrecy. Fine. Controlled exposure ends here. The rat lands beside Marek. Then does something it has never done in public. It mirrors Tiber. Perfectly. Western Guard. Brannock lowers his shield. The training chain locks. Necromancer. Champion. Construct. Retained soul. The old network recognizes the formation. Every 7-line seal in the room changes orientation. Sorn sees it. His face finally shows fear. Not because Brannock is stronger. Because the system has stopped treating him as administrator. The inner ward turns white, then opens. Tiber steps forward. For one impossible moment, his entire body becomes visible to everyone. Not fully solid. Not permanent. but visible, a translucent armored figure beside Marek. The Grand Mortuary Hall legends come to life in every witness's memory. Someone whispers his name, then 10 people, then half the chamber. Tiber Wren. The sound spreads. Tiber looks furious. At least the portrait's got the jaw right. Marek nearly laughs in the middle of disaster. Of course, Brannick stares. 6 centuries collapse between them. The shield captain's expression breaks. Took you long enough. Tiber's face twists. You died first. Someone had to avoid listening to you. There it is. The first reunion between 2 lost military legends in 6 centuries. And they immediately start insulting each other. Marek hates how unsurprising that feels. Then Brannick looks at Marek. His gaze drops to the rat. Back to Tiber. You assigned? Tiber's expression becomes terrible. Apparently. Brannick laughs. A deep, ugly battlefield laugh. Poor bastard. Marek decides he dislikes him already. Then the chamber shakes again. This time from below, not Brannick. Other retained souls. The network recognizes active command structure. 3 chambers answer, then 5. Then 11. Silver bells ring throughout Blackmere's foundations. Students scream upstairs. The directorate operators panic. Sorn pushes himself upright. Seal everything. Wrong again. Tiber turns toward Marek. Do not let the network cascade. Now the real problem. Marek feels the pathways. Too many. Retained souls are waking through recognition. Not hostile, but uncontrolled. If all 11 active chambers open simultaneously, Blackmere loses containment completely. Marek cannot command them. Good, he should not. But he can do what Tiber has been teaching from the beginning. Reduce waste. Simplify response. 1 instruction. Not to the souls, to the network. Hold. Marek places 1 hand on the central seal. Sorn sees it. Stop him. Nobody moves fast enough. Garrick blocks the first directorate attendant. Not with a summon, with his body. Celine closes the emergency gate behind Marek. Isabel slams her black key into the secondary control panel. Ronan looks around. Are we committing treason? Garrick grunts. Probably. Good to know. Then Ronan summons both bone ravens directly into an operator's face. Tiber almost smiles. Trench casualty improves. The setup from Every Quiet Night explodes at once. Garrick's recovered veil records. Celine's suspicion. Isabel's hidden access. Ronan's rivalry. Marek's deliberately trained formation logic. All of it becomes payoff. Not because Marek predicted every detail. He did not. Because every relationship he built gave him another piece when the plan changed. That is the difference. Sorn built control. Marek accidentally built options. He touches the network. Silver floods his vision. 11 retained souls. 11 identities pressing against ancient doors. Mira Solven. Brannock Vey. Others without names he knows. The pressure is massive. Marek's mana pool is still pathetic. Embarrassingly so. Good. He does not overpower anything. He gives the network the smallest instruction it can understand. Hold formation. Tiber places his hand over Marek's. This time, physical contact remains. Brannick plants his shield beside them. The rat braces between Marek's boots. 1 principle, 1 chain. No domination, discipline. The bells stop. All at once. Silence crashes over Blackmere. The 11 chambers remain awake, but closed. Stable. Marek opens his eyes. Blood runs from his nose. His right hand shakes. The rat's 8th mark has widened into a full silver crown around its skull. Brannick looks at the construct, then at Tiber. That thing yours? Tiber scowls. No. The rat mirrors his scowl through posture somehow. Brannick laughs again. Looks like yours. The companion has not fully evolved. Not yet. But most of the final structure is there now. Selective response. Independent combination of trained patterns. Recognition across retained souls. A bridge. Small enough to hide in a sleeve. Important enough to stabilize an ancient military network. That is completely ridiculous. And very much Marek's life now. Sorn stands on the other side of the broken control circle. His authority is shattered publicly. His directorate still exists. His personnel still surround the room. But every witness has just watched a first-year student do what Sorn could not. Worse, they watched Tiber Wren appear beside him. There is no putting that secret back. Sorn knows it. Marek knows it. Tiber definitely knows it. Professor Isabel removes her key from the panel. The demonstration is over. Sorn looks at her. You do not have authority to end it. She looks around the destroyed chamber, then at the gallery full of witnesses. I believe reality has. Even Tiber seems to like that one. Sorn's eyes settle on Marek. No pretending anymore. You have no idea what you opened. Marek wipes the blood from his mouth. He looks toward Brannick, then Tiber. Then the silent retention seals beneath Blackmere. Sorn is right. Marek does not know. But he knows one thing Sorn still refuses to understand. You didn't open it either. The sentence lands. Short. Cold. Specific. Soren's jaw tightens. Marek turns away from him. Not victory, not yet. But the balance has changed. Students no longer see Marek as Blackmere's weak failure. The faculty no longer sees historical assets as unquestioned authority. Garrick now knows his family history was stolen. Celine has chosen a side, at least temporarily. Isabel has openly broken with Sorn. And 11 retained souls are awake beneath the academy. The reveal from the remnant hall is no longer a mystery buried beneath stone. It has become a political problem, a military problem, a historical problem, a living problem created entirely from dead people. Tiber looks around the chamber. Then, at Marek, "You showed too much." Marek exhales. "You keep saying that after telling me to win, and you continue misunderstanding the subtlety of victory." Brannock grunts. "He always talked like that." Marek looks at the shield captain. Brannock points toward Tiber. "Usually right before getting us surrounded." Tiber's expression becomes murderous. "We were never surrounded. Because I got us out. You followed my plan. I ignored the stupid half." Marek closes his eyes briefly. "Fantastic. One ancient mentor was already unbearable. Now there are two." A warning bell begins ringing above ground, not a corpse bell, the Academy Assembly bell. Emergency session. Sorn is already moving toward the exit, not retreating. Repositioning. Tiber watches him leave. He will strike again. Marek nods. The Directorate has lost control of the narrative, so Sorn will move toward law, authority, ownership clauses, emergency powers, anything that turns public fear into institutional permission. That means the next battlefield will not be this chamber. It will be Blackmere itself. Marek looks toward the gallery. Faculty are already arguing. Guild sponsors send messengers. Students crowd the doors. Rumor begins moving faster than any spirit. He reaches down. The skeletal rat climbs his arm. Silver markings still exposed. No point hiding those from people who just watched Tiber Wren materialize. Tiber looks at Brannock. The shield captain's spirit remains anchored to the chamber. He cannot follow. Not yet. That frustrates him visibly. Good. One irritable dead legend following Marek around is enough for a normal day. Tiber places one hand on the broken containment rail. Tomorrow changes everything. Marek picks up the practice spear, straightens his bruised shoulder, then looks toward the stairs leading back into Blackmere. No. The champion raises an eyebrow. Marek steps through the emergency gate. It already did. Behind him, Brannock's laugh follows them out of the vault. Above them, Blackmere's emergency council begins assembling, and across the academy foundations, 11 white marks remain lit, waiting. Blackmere spends the next morning arguing over who owns the dead, which, for a school full of necromancers, really should have happened sooner. The emergency council fills the grand mortuary hall before breakfast. Faculty take the lower benches. Guild representatives occupy the western gallery. Historical assets personnel stand together near the center aisle. Students are technically forbidden from attending, so naturally, nearly every upper corridor is packed. Marek sits nowhere near the front. Good habit. Tiber stands beside him anyway. Bad habit. Below, Edric Sorn has already recovered from yesterday's disaster. New coat. New command rod. Same expression. The man could probably survive a building collapse and complain about the paperwork. Professor Isabel stands across from him. Celine waits behind the faculty rail. Garrick has somehow acquired 3 pages of legal code overnight. Ronan has acquired breakfast. Priorities. Tiber looks at the pastry in Ronan's hand. That is food? Marek keeps his voice low. Apparently. It is glazed. Yes. For breakfast. Yes. The champion looks genuinely wounded. 6 centuries of death cannot prepare a man for sweet bread. Sorn raises one hand. The hall quiets. Yesterday's incident proves precisely why retained entities require centralized control. Marek almost admires it. Almost. Public humiliation becomes evidence for more authority. Fast recovery, Sorn continues. 11 chambers are currently active. 1 entity achieved full manifestation. Another manifested externally without directorate authorization. That second one is Tiber. Hundreds of people glance toward Marek. Wonderful. Our necromancer lowers his eyes. Tiber folds his arms. Cowards stare. Marek ignores him. Sorn speaks for another 10 minutes. Safety, historical preservation, legal stewardship, emergency authority. The words change. The objective does not. Give historical assets sole access to the retained souls. Professor Isabel waits until he finishes. Then she places one document on the council table. Pre-Academy Charter. Sorn's expression changes by less than a fraction. Still enough. Isabel continues. Recovered from lower archive 2. Marek knows immediately that is a lie. There is no reason for her to reveal the true archive. Good. The charter defines retained commanders as advisors assigned by mutual recognition. Murmurs spread. Sorn responds. That document predates Blackmere authority. Exactly. The word lands. Tiber almost smiles. Isabel looks toward the council. The directorate claims ownership through Blackmere succession. It cannot inherit authority while rejecting the rules that created that authority. Garrick stops reading. Celine looks impressed. Ronan keeps eating. Marek files away the argument. Useful. Sorn does too. That is the problem. He will not lose here and simply surrender. He will change battlefields. The council votes. Not on permanent control. Too divisive. Instead, temporary restrictions remain. No chamber may be opened. No retained soul may be summoned. No student may enter the sealed foundation levels. Historical assets loses unilateral activation authority pending review. Sorn wins less than he wanted. Isabel wins more than expected. Nobody actually wins. Perfect politics. Tiber looks disappointed. No duel? Marek stands. Different century. Worse century. Outside the hall, the academy explodes into rumor. Students surround Garrick. Faculty corner Isabel. Two guild representatives attempt to approach Marek. Celine intercepts one. Ronan intercepts the other by claiming Marek has a contagious funerary rash. It works disturbingly well. Marek stares at him. Ronan shrugs. People fear necromancy less than skin disease. Tiber nods. Useful. Ronan cannot hear the compliment, probably for the best. By noon, Marek disappears into the oldest place nobody currently cares about. The ossuary. The door closes. Noise fades. For the first time since Brannock's awakening, nothing is actively exploding. Marek places the skeletal rat on the work table. It looks terrible. Half the black wax has burned away. Silver markings cover the spine. The longer rear leg is chipped. One crowbone rib has split. The ring around its skull has widened after yesterday's network stabilization. Tiber crouches beside it. Repairs first. Marek removes his coat. No argument. The champion gives him a suspicious look. That is unusual. Enjoy it. Marek lights the small furnace. Not a magical one. Just coal, a bellows, and a metal tray stolen from a disused anatomy lab. Specific tools for specific problems. He takes out 3 objects. Cornvale's bronze fragment. Sorn's silver 7-line token. And the bent command spike from the training soldier. Tiber looks at the silver token. You kept that. It conducts retention signals. It is also a trap. Both can be true. Tiber grunts. Marek heats the outer rim. Not enough to melt the whole token, just enough to soften the silver edge. Then he cuts a narrow strip. Tiber watches his hands. Too thick. Marek files it down. Still thick. More filing. Now crooked. Marek stops. You cannot hold a file. Tiber's expression becomes offensive. Not consistently. That is different. Marek hands it to him. The file passes through his fingers. Tiber scowls. Second attempt. His hand flickers. Touches the handle. Slips. Third. For 2 seconds, the dead champion holds it. Actually holds it. The metal vibrates. Then falls. Neither says anything. Tiber reaches again. This time he keeps the file for 4 seconds. Enough to make one precise stroke across the silver strip. Marek watches. Not the tool. Tiber, 6 centuries dead, still insisting on correcting workmanship personally. The champion notices. Autopsy face. Marek returns to the rat. File straighter. Tiber's mouth twitches. They work like that for nearly an hour. Marek holds. Tiber corrects. Marek heats. Tiber measures by eye. The silver strip becomes a narrow internal brace that fits beneath the rat's skull ring. Not decoration. A limiter. The same directorate alloy that carries retention commands will now help the rat filter them. Marek connects the brace to the 7 spinal marks through thin bronze wire. Then he leaves one gap. Tiber notices. Why incomplete? Failsafe. If the network overloads, I break the bridge. The champion looks at the rat. Then at Marek. Good. No insult, just good. That lands harder than it should. Marek says nothing. He finishes the brace. The rat stands. Silver light travels from skull to spine, stops at the intentional gap, then settles. No uncontrolled flare, no pull toward Brannock, no whisper from the other chambers. Selective response, stable, concrete. The companion's final preparation is in place, still not evolved, but ready. Tiber performs Western Guard. The rat mirrors him. Then Marek gives a different command. Scout. The rat drops the stance immediately and moves according to Marek's intent. 2 authorities. No conflict, exactly what he wanted. The mentoring chain no longer collapses into command confusion. Marek sits back. His hands are black with soot. Tiber studies the construct. It needs a name. Marek looks at him. The champion appears immediately annoyed by his own sentence. You've been calling it the rat for more than a week. It is a rat. It has fought trained soldiers. Still a rat. It helped stabilize 11 retained chambers. Marek thinks about it. The skeletal construct scratches behind one ear with its mismatched hind leg. Tiber waits. Marek says, "Pike." The champion frowns. Why? It keeps climbing spears. Tiber looks deeply disappointed. That is your reasoning? Yes. The rat clicks its jaw. Tiber sighs. Fine, Pike it is. The name changes nothing magically. No flash, no notification. Good. Not everything needs one, but when Marek taps the table and says the name, the skeletal rat turns immediately. Tiber notices. So does Marek. Small thing, important thing. Identity has started forming around repetition. That afternoon, Blackmere becomes strangely quiet. No classes. No demonstrations. No public summoning. Every student with common sense stays away from the lower levels. Marek goes to the dining hall, mostly because Tiber orders him to. You are slow. I am injured. You are hungry. Also injured. Food first. The champion floats across the table while Marek receives a bowl of beef and barley stew. Steam carries rosemary and black pepper. A heel of dark bread sits beside it. Tiber looks into the bowl. Finally, approval. Better. Marek tears the bread. This passes? Barely. The dining hall is nearly empty. Rain taps against the narrow windows. Kitchen workers stack bowls behind the counter. Pike sits hidden inside Marek's coat, warm from the new silver brace. For several minutes, nothing important happens. No ancient bells, no conspiracies. No elite students asking questions. Marek eats. Tiber watches. Eventually, the champion says, Brannick used to hate barley. Marek looks up. Tiber is not looking at him. He would trade his ration for onions. Marek returns to the stew. Bad trade. Exactly. A pause. Mira liked it. The field surgeon. Another retained soul. Marek tears another piece of bread. You remember them better now. Tiber goes still. That is true. Since Brannick manifested, fragments have started returning. Not the missing retention memory. Older things. Camp food. March routes. Faces. Arguments. Small pieces. Tiber looks toward the rain-dark window. Marek waits for the usual refusal. Instead, the champion says, I remember teaching Brannick to use that shield. Specific, quiet, no grand tragedy. He broke my nose during the lesson. Marek looks at the champion's face. No visible break. I was handsome. Marek nearly chokes on the stew. Tiber glares. Was? There it is. The old man is back. Good. The moment does not need more. Marek keeps eating. Tiber keeps complaining about modern bread. That is enough. Near dusk, Marek returns to the ossuary for the final technical problem. Yesterday, he stabilizes 11 chambers by sending one simple instruction through Tiber's authority. Hold formation. It works because every active soul still recognizes the old command architecture, but Sorn learns from failure. He will not use the same structure next time. Marek needs something adaptable, so he recreates the problem on a small scale. 6 constructs, different command patterns, the soldier. 2 skeletal hands, the crow, a canine frame. Pike. Each receives a separate movement rule. Tiber stands in the center. Marek activates shared perception. Not fully, just enough. Silver lines appear faintly across his vision. Command branches, movement priorities. Points where instructions overlap. He touches the practice spear to the floor. The metal acts as a conductor. Pike climbs the shaft. That matters. The little construct becomes the relay between Tiber's demonstrated pattern and Marek's necromantic structure. Marek does not command all 6 constructs. He changes one rule, only one. Priority. When conflict appears, preserve formation. The soldier adjusts. The crow shifts position. The canine yields space. The hands stop interfering with each other. 6 different command structures reorganize around one shared priority. No takeover, no brute force. The same technique Marek first uses on Garrick's skeleton, a tiny interruption at the branching point now becomes something larger. He does not seize enemy commands. He changes which command gets obeyed first. Tiber watches. Again, Marek resets everything. Second attempt, faster. Third, Pike misses the relay timing. The formation collapses. Tiber points immediately. Your rat anticipates too early. Marek adjusts Pike's skull brace, narrows the response window. Again, better. 5th attempt. The crow receives an attack command while the soldier retreats. Conflict. Marek finds the branch. Spear touches stone. Pike relays Tiber's stance. 1 pulse. Priority changes. The crow protects the retreat instead of charging. Tiber smiles. There. Marek feels it too. Not a new power. A refined application of everything already built. Shared perception identifies the branch. Residual discipline provides stable behavior. Tiber supplies combat structure. Pike relays between them. The spear grounds the pulse. 5 existing pieces. One mechanism. That can scale. Dangerously. Particularly against someone who believes command authority equals ownership. Tiber studies Marek. You finally understand. Try not to sound surprised. I remain capable of disappointment. Normal. Excellent. They continue until Pike's silver brace heats and Marek's vision blurs. Then they stop. Not because Tiber wants to. Because Marek does. That is new too. He knows the limit now. A weapon refined beyond its failure point becomes useless. The champion complains for 12 seconds, then accepts it. Progress. Across Blackmere, Edric Sorn does not spend the evening resting. He enters the directorate vault beneath the rector's tower. No students, no faculty, only 3 loyal operators. On the table lies a new device, not a command rod, a crown-shaped lattice built from 7 silver bands. Each band corresponds to 1 active retention pathway. Sorn places the first component into the frame. Mutual recognition is inefficient. One operator hesitates. The council forbade chamber activation. Sorn does not look up. They forbade summoning. The second component locks. This will not summon anything. A map of Blackmere glows beneath the crown. 11 white markers pulse. Sorn studies Marek's dormitory location. Then Tiber Wren's active assignment line. We are going to change who the network recognizes. The third component clicks into place. Tomorrow night, the directorate intends to overwrite Tiber's mentoring authority. Not destroy him, not dismiss him. Reassign him. Edric Sorn has finally understood enough of the old system to become truly dangerous. Back in the ossuary, Marek knows none of the device's details, but he knows Sorn did not attend dinner. Historical assets personnel have stopped guarding obvious doors, and the new locks around the lower halls are being removed instead of reinforced. Tiber studies the corridor map. He is inviting movement. Marek nods. A corridor left open can be more dangerous than one sealed shut. He packs the component case. Corin's bronze fragment, Isabel's copied charter clause, Sorn's remaining silver token. 1 emergency ward. Pike climbs into the outer shoulder pocket instead of hiding inside. No point pretending nothing has changed. Marek takes the practice spear. Tiber looks at it. You still grip too tightly. Marek loosens one hand. Better? No, of course. Marek extinguishes the furnace. Then every lamp. The ossuary falls dark. Tiber's spectral armor gives off just enough silver light to outline the door. Pike's skull ring remains completely dim. The new limiter works. Marek opens the door. Not toward his dormitory. Toward the old northern stair. The one historical asset stopped guarding an hour ago. Someone wants him to go down. Fine. Our necromancer adjusts the spear across his shoulder. Pike settles beside his collar. Tiber steps through the doorway first. Marek follows. The quiet part is over. The open stairwell is bait. Marek knows it. Tiber knows it. Pike probably knows it too, judging from the way the skeletal rat refuses to leave Marek's shoulder. They go down anyway. Because sometimes the fastest way to understand a trap is to let the person who built it believe the trap still works. The northern stair descends farther than any student map admits. First, 1 level, then 2. Then the academy architecture ends. Polished black stone becomes rough military masonry. Modern lanterns disappear. Old silver channels begin running along the walls. 7-line symbols repeat every 30 feet. Tiber stops complaining about construction. That alone makes the corridor feel dangerous. Marek keeps the practice spear in one hand. Not heroic, not elegant. The shaft still has academy inventory numbers burned into the wood. Exactly the kind of weapon nobody expects to matter. Pike crouches near his collar. The silver limiter beneath its skull remains dark. Good. 3 floors down, the first door opens by itself. Beyond it waits a vast circular chamber. No Sorn, no directorate operators, no guards. Just 11 stone doors arranged around the walls, every active retained chamber, Brannock's among them. Mira Solvins too. At the center stands a silver pedestal, and on the pedestal sits the crown. 7 bands, 7 command paths. A perfect little machine built to convince dead people that ownership is the same thing as authority. Tiber looks at it, ugly. Marek almost smiles. That is his mentor's reaction to the most dangerous necromantic device Blackmere has built in centuries. Ugly. Consistent, at least. Then the doors close behind them. There it is. Edric Sorn steps out from behind the central pillar. 3 direct 2DI letters. Good. This is not academy policy. This is Sorn. Much simpler. The director looks at Marek's spear. You expected resistance. Marek glances around. An unlocked restricted stairwell felt welcoming. Tiber snorts. Sorn's eyes shift slightly toward the champion. He still cannot see Tiber clearly. Not without the network active. That changes when Sorn touches the crown. Silver light floods the room. Tiber appears instantly, full outline. Armor, cloak, scar. Every detail. Sorn studies him like a collector finally seeing an artifact outside its case. Tiber Wren. The champion looks at him. Administrator. Sorn almost smiles. So you do hear him. Marek says nothing. No point denying anything now. Sorn closes one hand around the crown. The 7 bands begin rotating. The retained chamber doors pulse. Tiber's mentoring tether tightens violently. Marek's breath catches. Pain tears through the center of his chest. Not physical. Worse. The bond feels like a rope being dragged through bone. Pike's skull ring flashes. The limiter catches the first surge, then the second. Sorn watches. There. His expression changes. Satisfaction. You are not summoning Ren. Marek steadies the spear. Sorn continues. You are carrying an assignment. So he figured it out. Of course he did. The original retention network required recognized mentorship links. Living officers received retained specialists based on compatibility. Tiber looks toward the crown. His face hardens. Sorn touches one of the rotating bands. You woke an obsolete protocol. Marek looks at him. And you built a replacement. An improvement. Tiber's expression becomes offended. Naturally, Sorn turns the first band. The bond jerks. Tiber's image flickers. Pike hisses without lungs. Sorn speaks calmly. The network recognizes authority through priority. Marek's grip tightens around the spear. He already knows that. Sorn does not know he knows. Good. Your assignment outranks ordinary summoning commands. Second band rotates. Marek nearly drops. But administrative priority outranks assignment. There, the real mechanism. Not stronger mana, higher rank inside the network. Sorn built a crown that writes itself above Marek. Tiber starts moving toward the pedestal, against his will, one step. Then another. His boots scrape soundlessly over stone. The champion looks down at his own legs. Fury floods his face. Stop. Marek tries. The mentoring tether answers. But the crown overrides it. Tiber keeps moving. Pike's limiter glows brighter. Sorn turns the third band. One of the retained doors opens. Brannick appears behind a sheet of silver light. Not fully manifested. Bound. His shield arm trembles. What did you do? Sorn does not look at him. Correction. Second chamber opens. Mira Solvin appears. Tall, severe, spectral medical apron beneath old campaign armor. She takes one look at Tiber, then Brannick, then Sorn. Her expression becomes murderous. Apparently the old generation shares a temperament. Sorn turns another band. Both retained souls go rigid. The crown takes priority. Stage 1. The hit lands. Hard. Marek's worst assumption is correct. Sorn learned. He does not try to command each retained soul separately. He controls the hierarchy they all obey. Tiber reaches the central pedestal. His spectral hand rises. Sorn places the crown beneath it. Accept reassignment. Tiber's jaw locks. No. Silver lashes cross his body. Marek feels everyone through the tether. His knees hit the floor. Pike leaps down. The rat races toward the pedestal. A directorate operator above activates a ward. The construct gets smashed sideways. Bone cracks. Pike tumbles across the stone. One silver mark goes dark. Tiber turns. Marek. The crown forces his face forward again. Sorn's voice remains calm. Accept reassignment. No. Another pulse. Marek coughs blood onto the floor. The practice spear slips from his fingers. This is exactly what Sorn wanted. Not a duel. Not a battle where Marek's movement tricks matter. A bureaucratic execution translated into magic. Change one line in the chain. Everything below obeys. Brutal. Efficient. Terrifying. Marek reaches for the spear. His hand shakes. Sorn notices. You cannot overpower this. True. You do not have the mana. Also true. Ren carried you farther than your talent ever could. There. That one almost lands deeper than the magic. Almost. Marek looks at Tiber. The champion is still resisting. Not elegantly. Not heroically. His entire outline shakes from the pressure. 6 centuries of legend reduced to a dead man refusing to say yes. And suddenly Marek remembers the first night. Posture wrong. Breathing wrong. Grip wrong. Everything wrong. Tiber never once tells him he is secretly gifted. Never once claims hidden greatness. Never once says Marek was always meant for this. He only says again. 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 Marek wipes the blood from his mouth, then reaches for the spear. Not because he thinks he can win, because that is what training is for. Stage 2. Read. The crown rotates. 7 bands. But Sorn is not controlling them simultaneously. Marek sees the timing now. One band reads active assignments. One writes administrative priority. One suppresses competing identity. One redirects recognition. One locks dismissal. 2 stabilize the network. 7 functions, sequential, not continuous. They only look simultaneous because the cycle is fast. Tiber taught him to watch feet, Garrick taught him to watch command habits. The retained network taught him to see branches, and Sorn, for all his intelligence, still moves his thumb before changing priority. Tiny tell, Marek watches, turn, pause, pulse, turn, pause, pulse, there. A gap, less than half a heartbeat. Same as Garrick. Same principle, different scale. Marek looks toward Pike. The rat lies near the wall, 3 ribs broken, 1 foreleg twisted. Still moving. Of course, Tiber taught that too. Useful ugly things keep moving. Marek sends one tiny command, return. Pike's skull rises. Sorn does not notice. The rat drags itself forward. Slowly, badly, exactly like the pathetic construct everyone used to laugh at. Marek almost finds that funny. Sorn turns the 5th band. Tiber's hand lowers toward the crown. Forced. Brannick roars behind his chamber seal. Mira strains against hers. Marek closes his eyes for one breath. Shared perception. The network opens. Silver geometry floods everything, not just Sorn's crown. All 11 retained chambers. Tiber's assignment, Pike's limiter, the command path inside the floor, the spear, the directorate operators, and beneath all of it, older architecture. Original architecture. The remnant hall does not begin with administrators. It begins with requests. A living person calls. A retained soul accepts. Mutual recognition. That is why the old system survived. Not obedience. Consent. Sorn's crown works by inserting a false top priority over that older structure. Powerful, but artificial. Marek opens his eyes. He finally sees the weakness. The crown does not replace the old law. It suppresses it, and suppression requires constant priority, meaning one broken cycle is enough. Tiber looks at him. Marek gives the smallest nod. The champion understands instantly. Of course he does. 6 centuries late. Still a commander. Sorn turns the 1st band. Read. 2nd. Right. 3rd. Suppress. Marek counts. Not allowed. Pike reaches the spear. The skeletal rat bites the shaft. 4th. Redirect. The silver limiter under Pike's skull ignites. 5th. Lock. Marek grabs the spear. 6th. Stabilize. He rises. Sorn finally notices. Stay down. 7th. Stabilize. Cycle complete. Pause. Now. Marek slams the spear into the floor. The shaft touches the original silver channel beneath the pedestal. Pike climbs instantly. Broken body. 3 working legs. Jaw locked. The tiny construct reaches the metal point where spear meets ancient network. The 8th mark around its skull burns white. Marek sends the refined pulse. Not attack. Not seize. Priority. Preserve original recognition. The network bucks. Sorn's crown stutters. Half a heartbeat. That is all. Tiber moves. Not because Marek commands him. Because for 1 fraction of a second, no one does. The champion rips his hand away from the crown. Brannick slams his shield into his chamber seal. Mira drives both palms against hers. 3 retained souls act at once. The ancient system receives voluntary confirmation. Recognition accepted. Sorn's false priority collides with the original law. The crown screams. Actually screams. Silver vibrates at a pitch that makes every living person clutch their ears. The directorate operators lose synchronization. 1 band stops, then another. Sorn grabs the crown with both hands. Restore hierarchy. Too late. Pike's limiter breaks. The intentional gap Marek built into the silver brace snaps open. For 1 terrifying second, the entire retention network floods through the tiny construct. Marek feels the rat's tether expand. Not stretch. Open. Bones across the chamber begin moving. Old fragments embedded in the floor. Discarded military remains behind sealed alcoves. A rib. A jaw. Vertebrae. Armor plates. Nothing rises as an army. Everything moves toward Pike. Tiber looks down. Marek. He knows. The evolution. Finally. Pike's little frame lifts from the spear. The rat skeleton comes apart without breaking the tether. Each bone remains connected by silver light. Larger bones lock around them. A long spine assembles. Armored shoulders form. 4 reinforced limbs hit the stone. A predator's skull closes around Pike's tiny rat skull without destroying it. The original frame remains at the center. The core. The learned habits. The ridiculous mismatched hind leg becomes part of a larger rear joint. Silver markings spread across the new body. Not decorative. Training routes. Decision paths. Every lesson written physically across the skeleton. The silhouette Marek saw weeks ago finally becomes real. A skeletal warhound stands beside him. Not enormous. Not monstrous. Built low and long for speed. Its shoulder reaches Marek's waist. Old military plates cover the ribs. The skull ring becomes a silver collar of retention marks. Tiber stares. Brannick laughs despite everything. Knew that rat looked like yours. Tiber points at the evolved construct. It does not. Pike bears bone fangs. Same attitude. Much larger teeth. Evolution complete. Sorn does not care. He forces the crown back into motion. 3 bands restart. The administrative priority returns. Tiber jerks. Brannick's chamber begins sealing again. Mira disappears to the shoulders. Stage 3 is not finished. Marek grips the spear. Pike lowers itself beside him. Tiber assumes Western Guard. The hound mirrors him. Perfectly. Then Brannick does too. Mira follows with a field stance Marek has never seen. Other sealed chambers answer. Not opening. Aligning. 11 retained souls. 11 different specialists. 1 formation priority. Voluntary. Sorn's crown tries to rank them. Marek does the opposite. No hierarchy. Only function. The same thing he practiced with 6 mismatched constructs. Different roles. Shared priority. Preserve formation. The network changes. A siege engineer's chamber stabilizes the eastern seal. Mira redirects spiritual strain away from Marek's damaged tether. Brannick anchors the central line. Tiber provides combat structure. Pike relays. Marek finds the command branch. And now the technique reaches its final form. Not command interference. Not residual discipline. Not shared perception alone. Priority break. One precise alteration at the point where forced authority conflicts with voluntary function. Marek thrusts the spear forward. Not at Sorn. At the crown's shadow on the floor. Pike moves at the same instant. Fast. Terrifyingly fast. The warhound runs up the spear shaft, leaps, and lands on the pedestal. Sorn sends a suppression command. Pike ignores it. Selective response. Foreshadowed. Refined. Completed. The hound bites the 3rd silver band. The one that suppresses competing identity. Crack. Sorn's face changes. The crown loses suppression. Every retained soul remembers itself fully enough to reject him. Brannick breaks free first. Shield materializes. 1 strike. The 4th band shatters. Mira extends 1 spectral hand. The directorate operator nearest her suddenly loses every artificial reinforcement holding his mana channels open. He collapses safely instead of burning himself out. Field surgeon. Of course. 2 more souls manifest partially. Not enough for introductions. Enough to refuse. Sorn backs away. No. Tiber steps off the pedestal. Full form. Full presence. No compulsion. The champion looks at Sorn. You wanted authority. Sorn raises 1 broken command rod. Tiber's expression is almost pitying. Should have learned command. Sorn attacks. Not with the crown. Personally. Black necromantic chains erupt from the rod and race toward Marek. First real combat spell from him. Fast. Precise. Lethal enough now that secrecy is gone. Marek sees the shoulder turn. The wrist. The branch. Tiber says 1 word. Left. Marek steps left. Chains miss. Inside. He advances. Sorn sends a 2nd wave. Pike intercepts. The warhound twists between chains, lets 1 strike glance off an armored shoulder, then follows the opening exactly as trained. Protect, advance, withdraw. Combined on its own. Sorn stares at it. That hesitation costs him. Marek closes the distance. He still has weak mana, still has bruised ribs, still has no proper combat class, and his grip is apparently still too tight. But he is trained every night under a man too stubborn to stay dead. Marek rotates the spear. Tiber corrects him by half an inch. The shaft strikes Sorn's wrist. Command rod falls. Pike kicks it away. Sorn reaches for the crown. Brannick's shield crashes down between them. Stone fractures. The director stops. Surrounded now. Actually surrounded. Tiber glances at Brannick. We were never surrounded. Brannick grins. Still lying after 6 centuries. Marek almost laughs. Then Sorn reaches for an emergency seal hidden in his coat. Marek sees the thumb twitch. Old habit. Same tell. He drives the spear point through the cloth, pins the seal to Sorn's sleeve without touching flesh. Sorn freezes. It is over. Not with an explosion. Not with some impossible god-tier spell. With a first-year necromancer reading the same tiny movement he has been learning to read since a dead champion insulted his stance. Stage 4. Consequence. The crown collapses. 7 bands fall apart. Every forced administrative pathway goes dark. The retained chambers remain active. But stable. Not owned. Not assigned. Waiting for recognition. The network accepts its original rule again. Request. Consent. Mentorship. Marek's mana reserve, tiny as ever, finally bottoms out. His legs give. Pike moves beneath him before he hits the floor. The warhound catches his weight across its armored back. Tiber reaches for Marek's shoulder. This time his hand stays solid. No flicker. No passing through. The champion holds him upright. Marek looks at the hand. Tiber notices. Do not make this sentimental. Marek is too tired to answer properly. Your grip was still wrong. There it is. Perfect. Above them, the chamber doors open. Not all the way. Enough. 11 retained souls watch Sorn. No cheering. No revenge. Just witnesses. Professor Isabel arrives with Celine, Garrick, Ronan, and half the emergency faculty behind them. They stop at the doorway. The scene explains itself. Broken crown. Sorn disarmed, Tiber manifested, Brannick free. Pike evolved, Marek half-conscious and covered in blood. Ronan looks at the warhound. That was a rat. Marek manages. Still is. Pike turns its enormous skull toward him. Ronan decides not to argue. Good instinct. Isabel walks toward Sorn. The director looks at the retained souls around him, then at Marek. For the first time, there is no calculation left in his expression. Only the realization that he understood the mechanism and still misunderstood the people inside it. That is what destroys him. Not weaker magic. Wrong premise. He thought preserved souls were assets. The entire system was built around the fact that they were still persons. Professor Isabel removes the directorate insignia from his coat. Edric Sorn, your emergency authority is suspended pending council judgment. Sorn laughs once, bitter. You think this solves anything? Marek looks around the chamber. 11 active retained souls. Ancient history restored. Blackmere's foundation exposed. No, it solves almost nothing. Good. Real victories rarely solve everything. They solve the problem trying to kill someone right now. Tiber looks toward the sealed chambers. His expression changes. Marek follows his gaze. These are people the champion thought vanished. Some died before him, some after. Some may know what happened to his missing memories. The deeper revelation has reached its answer. The Remnant Hall was never built as a prison. It was a wartime mentorship network. Later generations twisted it into storage, then ownership. That distortion is what buried the truth. And now the original function is restored. Not completely, but enough. Brannick walks toward Tiber. The two old soldiers stop several feet apart. No embrace, obviously. Brannick extends one fist. Tiber looks at it, then bumps his own against it. 6 centuries apart, 1 second together. That is all they need. Mira watches from her chamber. Still dramatic. Tiber turns. You are alive? She stares. No. A pause. Right. Marek finally laughs, painfully. Bad decision. His ribs immediately punish him. Tiber looks down. What are you doing? Nothing. That was clearly something. Marek leans against Pike. The evolved hound adjusts automatically to support him. Not command. Habit. Protection. Its silver collar pulses once. Stable. Complete. The champion sees it too. For once, he does not call the creature ugly. He places one hand on Pike's armored skull. The hound lowers its head. Acceptable. Brannick groans. Still cheap with praise. Tiber ignores him. Marek hears emergency bells beginning throughout Blackmere, not warnings this time. Assembly. Witnesses. Consequences. The academy above is about to learn that historical assets no longer controls the retained network. Faculty will fight over policy. Guilds will fight over access. Families like the Vales will demand restored records. Students will turn Marek into a rumor bigger than anything he can hide now. That part is unavoidable. The weak first year who could barely maintain 5 skeletal rats is gone. Not because his mana suddenly becomes massive. It does not. Not because Tiber gives him legendary power. He never does. Marek simply learns how not to waste what little he has. Movement, attention, commands, trust, even weakness, especially weakness. Tiber looks toward the stairway. Can you walk? Marek tries. His knees disagree. Pike lowers itself. The answer becomes obvious. No. Tiber sighs. Embarrassing. Marek climbs onto the skeletal warhound's back. Still moving. The champion pauses, then smiles. Better. They leave the shattered retention chamber together. Marek riding the evolved companion that used to fit inside his sleeve. Tiber walking beside him fully manifested. Brannick remaining behind with the other retained souls until the council establishes proper terms. Sorn sits under faculty guard beside the broken crown he thought would make him master of history. And for once, Blackmere's oldest bells do not ring because something has gone wrong. They ring because 11 dead people have finally been recognized as themselves again. Marek reaches the first stair. Tiber immediately points at his posture. Sit straighter. Marek stares at him. Now? Especially now. 6 centuries. A ruined conspiracy, a restored ancient network, a fully evolved undead warhound, and history's greatest champion still refuses to leave him alone. Honestly, at this point, that may be the most reliable thing in Marek's life.